One text message, one wrong number, one man you should never cross. Lena Carter thought she was being clever, flirty, bold, sending a message that would make her dating app match smile. Instead, it landed in the hands of Adrian Voss, a name whispered in fear across the city's shadows. Within an hour, her phone rang with a voice cold enough to freeze blood. Within 2, armed men stood at her door. By nightfall, she sat across from a man whose empire was built on secrets and violence, learning that some mistakes don't just ruin your day, they rewrite your entire life. Stay with me until the end, hit that like button, and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The phone buzzed at 11:47 p.m. Lena stared at the screen, wine glass halfway to her lips, frozen by 3 words that made no sense. Who is this? Her stomach dropped. The number wasn't saved in her contacts, but she recognized it. She'd just sent a message to it 5 minutes ago. A playful, slightly drunk text meant for Marcus, the architect she'd matched with on the dating app. The guy with the nice smile and the dog photos. Still thinking about that drink you promised me. When are you going to make good on it? Harmless, flirty, exactly the kind of thing you send at nearly midnight when you've had 2 glasses of Pinot Grigio and your best friend has been hyping you up all evening. Except Marcus's number started with 617. This one started with 508. Oh no! The words came out as a whisper. No, no, no. She scrolled back through her messages, hands shaking now, and there it was. The screenshot of Marcus's profile her friend Ashley had sent her earlier. She'd copied the number from that image. She'd copied it wrong, 1 digit off, a 7 instead of a 6. Her phone buzzed again. I asked you a question. The wine glass hit the coffee table harder than she intended. Red liquid sloshed over the rim, staining the fashion magazine underneath. Lena didn't notice. She was too busy staring at those 5 words, trying to figure out how to fix this. Just apologize. Wrong number. Simple. Her fingers moved across the screen. I'm so sorry. Wrong number. Please disregard my mistake. She added 3 exclamation points like they could somehow soften the embarrassment, then hit send and immediately powered down her phone. Stupid, stupid, stupid. She dropped her face into her hands. Ashley would never let her live this down. Some random stranger now had her flirty drunk text saved in their phone, probably already screenshotting it to show their friends, laughing about the desperate woman who couldn't even copy a number correctly. The apartment felt too quiet suddenly. Too still. Lena lived alone in a small 1-bedroom in South Boston, the kind of place where the radiator clanged at odd hours, and you could hear your neighbors' conversations through the walls. Usually, she found it cozy. Tonight, it felt claustrophobic. She powered her phone back on. No new messages. See? Not a big deal. She said it aloud to convince herself, then poured the rest of the wine down the sink. No more drinking on a Tuesday. That was the rule she was implementing right now. The phone rang. Not a text. A call. From the same number. Lena's heart kicked against her ribs. She stared at the screen, watching it vibrate across the counter, the unknown number flashing like a warning. Nobody called anymore. Especially not at midnight. Especially not if you didn't know them. She let it go to voicemail. Silence returned. Her breathing sounded too loud in the empty kitchen. Then the phone rang again. Jesus Christ. Her hand hovered over the screen. What kind of person called twice after a wrong number text? Unless, maybe it wasn't just some random guy. Maybe it was someone who thought he did know her. Maybe she'd accidentally texted her dentist or her landlord or... She answered. Hello? The voice that came through was male, smooth, and carried the kind of authority that made her spine straighten instinctively. You sent me a message. Yes. I'm sorry, it was a mistake. Wrong number. I meant to... What's your name? The question cut through her explanation like a knife. Direct, uninterested in her excuses. Why? Because I'd like to know who's propositioning me at midnight. Heat flooded her face. That wasn't for you. I literally just explained that. Lena Carter. Her blood turned to ice water. How do you know my name? You used your real number. Takes about 30 seconds to find out who owns it. His tone hadn't changed. Still calm, still controlled. Somehow that made it worse. You live on West 4th Street, apartment 3B. You work at Meridian Marketing downtown. You have a sister in Providence and a cat named Hemingway. Stop. The word came out strangled. Stop it right now. Who the hell are you? Someone you should not have contacted. The line went dead. Lena stood in her kitchen, phone pressed to her ear, listening to empty air. Her hands had started shaking. Her whole body had started shaking. He knew where she lived. He knew where she worked. This wasn't some random stranger annoyed by a misdirected text. This was something else. Something wrong. She locked her phone and immediately unlocked it again, fingers flying across the screen as she pulled up her messages and blocked the number. Then she checked all her locks, door, windows, the flimsy chain she never used, all secure. "It's fine," she whispered. "He's just trying to scare you. It's fine." But she didn't believe it. She spent the next hour curled up on her couch, lights on, baseball bat from the hall closet propped against the cushions. Every sound in the building made her flinch. The couple arguing upstairs, the pipes groaning, the distant wail of sirens that was just normal city background noise. At 1:30 a.m., exhausted and jittery from adrenaline, she finally convinced herself to go to bed. Tomorrow, this would seem ridiculous. Tomorrow she'd laugh about it with Ashley over lunch. She made it until 3:47 a.m. before the knocking started. 3 sharp raps on her apartment door. Lena sat bolt upright in bed, heart hammering. The knocking came again, measured, patient, the kind of knock that said the person on the other side would wait as long as necessary. She grabbed her phone. The screen lit up her dark bedroom. No missed calls, no new messages. The knocking stopped. Then her phone buzzed with a text from a different number. "Open the door, Ms. Carter." "No." She said it to the empty room. "Absolutely not." Another buzz. "We can do this the easy way or the complicated way. Your choice." Her hands were shaking so badly she almost dropped the phone. She pulled up her keypad, started to dial 911. "I wouldn't." The text came through before she could finish. "The police can't help you. They won't even try. Open the door." Lena's finger hovered over the call button. Every instinct screamed at her to press it, to get help, to not open that door under any circumstances. But something in those words, "they won't even try," made her hesitate. She climbed out of bed on shaking legs, grabbed the baseball bat, and moved to the door. The peephole showed 2 men in dark suits standing in the hallway. Both tall, both built like they spent their lives in a gym. Neither one looked like they were here to have a conversation. "What do you want?" she called through the door. "Mr. Voss would like to see you." The name meant nothing to her. "I don't know any Mr. Voss." "You texted him tonight." Her stomach lurched. "That was a mistake. I already explained." "He's aware. Nevertheless, he'd like to speak with you. Now." "It's 4 in the morning. Yes, ma'am. I'm not going anywhere with you." The man on the left, the one doing the talking, sighed like he'd expected this. "Miss Carter, I'm going to be very clear. You have 2 options. You can open this door and come with us voluntarily, or we can open it ourselves. Either way, you're having this conversation with Mr. Voss. The first option is significantly less unpleasant for everyone involved. This is insane. You can't just, we can. We are. You have 60 seconds to decide." Lena backed away from the door. Phone clutched in one hand, bat in the other. This couldn't be happening. This didn't happen to people like her. She sent a wrong text, that was all. A stupid, embarrassing wrong number. 30 seconds passed in silence. Then she heard it, the quiet scrape of metal on metal. They were picking her lock. The decision made itself. She dropped the bat, grabbed her purse and jacket, and yanked the door open before they could finish. Both men looked at her with expressions that suggested they dealt with terrified women at 4 a.m. more often than anyone should. "Smart choice, though," the talker said. "If you kill me, my sister will notice." "Nobody's killing you, ma'am. Just a conversation." They walked her down 3 flights of stairs, no elevator in this building, she'd complained about it 100 times, and out to the street where a black Mercedes idled at the curb. Tinted windows. License plate she couldn't quite read in the dark. The second man opened the rear door. Lena looked at the car, then back at her apartment building. Lights were starting to come on in windows. Mrs. Chen across the hall was probably awake, probably watching from behind her curtains. "Get in, please." She got in. The interior smelled like leather and something expensive she couldn't identify. The men climbed into the front seats. The door locks clicked. Where are we going? Mr. Voss's office. At 4 in the morning. He keeps unusual hours. The drive took 20 minutes through empty streets. Lena watched the city slide past her window, trying to memorize the route, looking for landmarks. They crossed the bridge into downtown, wound through the financial district, and finally pulled up in front of a high-rise she recognized. The Voss building. She'd walked past it 100 times. Steel and glass, 30 stories, one of those modern architectural statements that made the city look like it was trying too hard. The ground floor had some trendy restaurant she'd never been able to afford. Out. They escorted her through a private entrance, past a security desk where the guard didn't even look up, and into an elevator that required a key card to operate. The ride-up was silent except for the mechanical hum and her own breathing. 27th floor. The doors opened onto a reception area that belonged in a magazine spread. Everything was sharp angles and expensive materials, marble, dark wood, brushed steel. The city sprawled beyond floor-to-ceiling windows, lights stretching to the horizon. And behind a massive desk at the far end of the room sat a man who looked up as she entered. Adrian Voss. Lena recognized him immediately, even though they'd only met once, months ago, at a charity event her company had helped organize. He'd given a speech, donated a staggering amount of money, shook hands with the mayor. She remembered thinking he looked too young to have built the empire everyone whispered about. Mid-30s, maybe? Dark hair, darker eyes, the kind of face that could sell watches or cologne if he wanted a different career. She also remembered the way the room had quieted when he entered, the way people had stepped aside to let him pass, the way her boss had turned pale when he'd approached their table. He stood as she walked in. "Miss Carter, thank you for coming. I didn't have a choice." "No," he agreed. "You didn't." The men who'd brought her here disappeared through a side door, leaving them alone. Adrian gestured to one of the chairs facing his desk. "Sit." "I'd rather stand." "Sit." Not a request the second time. Lena sat. Her purse slipped from her lap to the floor and she left it there, hands clenched together to stop the shaking. Adrian returned to his own chair, laced his fingers together on the desk's surface, and studied her with the kind of attention that made her feel like a specimen under glass. "Do you know who I am?" he asked. "We met at the Harbor Lights Gala. You donated $2 million. "I did. Do you know what I do, Miss Carter?" She swallowed. "You run businesses." That's diplomatic. Most people would use different words. "I don't know what you want me to say." "The truth. You know what I am. Say it." Her heart was beating so hard she could feel it in her throat. "You're a criminal." "Close enough." He leaned back in his chair, completely relaxed, like they were discussing the weather. "I run several operations in this city. Most of them are perfectly legal. Some exist in gray areas. A few would get me significant prison time if certain people started asking questions." He paused. "Fortunately, those people don't ask questions about me." "Keying." "Why am I here?" "Because you sent me a very interesting text message tonight." "That was an accident." "I believe you. Nevertheless, it created a problem." "How? How could a wrong number text possibly create a problem for you?" He pulled out his phone, tapped the screen, and turned it toward her. Her own words stared back at her. "Still thinking about that drink you promised me. When are you going to make good on it?" "I never promised you anything," he said, "but you seem to think I did, which suggests we have a prior relationship, which means people in my organization might wonder who you are, how you know me, and why you're comfortable enough to send messages like this at midnight." Understanding crashed over her like cold water. "You think I'm, what, a spy? Someone trying to get information?" "I think you're someone who made a mistake. Unfortunately, my associates won't see it that way. They'll see a woman who has my private number, a number exactly 4 people outside my immediate circle possess, sending me familiar messages. They'll ask questions, they'll dig, and when they discover you're nobody important, they'll wonder why I have you in my contacts at all." "But you don't. The number was..." "I know, but they won't believe that. So now I have 2 choices." He set his phone down. "Option 1. I make you disappear. Permanently. Problem solved. Lena's vision blurred at the edges. She gripped the chair arms to stay upright. Option 2? You work for me. The room spun. What? I have an event in 3 weeks. A charity gala, similar to the one where we met. My assistant quit last week under unfortunate circumstances. I need someone to organize it. Someone competent. Someone who understands how these things work. His expression didn't change. You do that kind of work, don't you? Event planning, marketing? Yes, but then you'll do this successfully. And in return, I'll make sure my people understand you're working for me legitimately. No questions asked, no investigations. You finish the gala, we go our separate ways, and you forget this conversation ever happened. She stared at him, trying to find words. You're blackmailing me into being your event planner? Blackmail implies I have something on you. I don't. This is simply the lesser of 2 bad options. He checked his watch. It's late. I'm sure you'd like to go home and process this. My driver will take you back to your apartment. Be here tomorrow at 9 a.m. We'll discuss details then. And if I refuse, then we proceed with option 1. The casual way he said it, like he was discussing coffee orders, made her stomach turn. This is crazy. Yes, but it's also happening. He stood, signaling the end of the conversation. 9 a.m., Ms. Carter. Don't be late. The same 2 men appeared from nowhere to escort her back to the elevator. Lena walked between them on autopilot, her mind racing through everything that had just happened, trying to find the moment where her normal life had ended and this nightmare had begun. A text message. 1 wrong digit. That was all it took. The Mercedes drove her home in silence. The sun was starting to rise, painting the sky in shades of gray and pink that would have been beautiful under different circumstances. The men walked her to her apartment door, waited while she unlocked it, then disappeared down the stairs. Inside, everything looked exactly as she'd left it. The wine-stained magazine on the coffee table, the baseball bat lying in the hallway, her unmade bed visible through the open bedroom door. Normal. Mundane. Safe. Except nothing was safe anymore. Lena locked the door, checked all the windows again, and pulled out her phone. Her fingers hovered over Ashley's contact. She could call, explain, ask for help. But what would she say? Hey, remember that wrong number text? Turns out I accidentally messaged a crime boss and now he's forcing me to plan his gala or he'll kill me. Ashley would tell her to call the police. They won't even try, the text had said. Lena set the phone down. She had 8 hours until 9 a.m. 8 hours to figure out what the hell she was going to do. 8 hours to decide if she was really going to walk back into that building and pretend this was a normal job with a normal boss who just happened to make people disappear when they became inconvenient. She sat on her couch, still wearing yesterday's clothes, and watched the sunrise. At 8:45, she got dressed. Black pants, white blouse, the professional uniform she wore to every client meeting. She pulled her dark hair into a neat bun, applied minimal makeup to hide the exhaustion, and stared at herself in the bathroom mirror. You can do this, she whispered. 3 weeks. Plan the gala. Walk away. Simple, transactional, survivable. The woman in the mirror didn't look convinced. Lena grabbed her purse and walked out the door. Quote, the Voss building looked different in daylight, less imposing, just another high-rise in a city full of them. Business people in suits streamed through the main entrance, coffee cups in hand, eyes on their phones. Normal. Lena followed them inside, trying to blend in, trying to look like she belonged. The lobby directory listed dozens of companies spread across the building's 30 floors. Law firms, consulting groups, a few tech startups. No mention of Adrian Voss. She rode the elevator to the 27th floor with 3 other people who got off 2 floors before. When the doors opened, she half expected to find the office empty. A dream. A hallucination brought on by stress and too much wine, but the reception area was exactly as she remembered. And seated at the desk, a piece of furniture she hadn't noticed last night, was a woman who looked up as Lena approached. Ms. Carter? Yes. Mr. Voss is expecting you. Conference room. Second door on your right. Thank you. The conference room had the same floor-to-ceiling windows, the same expensive everything. A long table dominated the space, covered in file folders, binders, and what looked like seating charts. Adrian stood at the far end, phone to his ear, speaking in rapid-fire sentences that sounded like a different language. He glanced at her, held up one finger, and continued his conversation. Lena stood awkwardly near the door, not sure if she should sit or wait or leave. He ended the call. "You came." "Did I have a choice?" "No, but some people make poor decisions anyway." He gestured to the table. "Everything related to the gala is here. Guest list, venue contracts, catering proposals, entertainment options. Melissa, my previous assistant, was meticulous. You'll want to review her notes." Lena approached the table cautiously, like the papers might bite. "When did she quit?" "She didn't quit. She tried to steal from me." "Oh." Hence the unfortunate circumstances. He pulled out a chair for her, a weirdly polite gesture that didn't match anything else about him. "Sit. We have a lot to cover." She sat. For the next 2 hours, Adrian walked her through every detail of the event. The gala would host 300 guests, business leaders, politicians, celebrities, the kind of people whose presence required extensive security and careful seating arrangements. The venue was already booked, the grand ballroom at the Harborview Hotel, overlooking the water. Catering was finalized. Entertainment was confirmed. What remained was everything else. "You'll need to coordinate with the hotel manager," Adrian said, sliding a binder across the table. "He's difficult. Don't let him push you around." "Okay." "The guest list needs final confirmation. Some of these people will try to bring uninvited additions. No exceptions." "Got it." Security is non-negotiable. Marcus will handle logistics, but you'll need to provide him with a detailed schedule." "Marcus?" Her head snapped up. "Marcus Reeves, my head of security. Why?" "Nothing. Just... That's the name of the guy I thought I was texting." Adrian's expression didn't change. "Interesting coincidence." "Yeah." He continued as if she hadn't spoken. "You'll also need to approve final numbers for the silent auction, coordinate speeches, and manage press requests. We're allowing limited media coverage. Guest list for that is separate." Lena's head was spinning. This wasn't a 3-week job. This was a full-time position that required a staff of 10 people and months of preparation. "This is impossible." "No, it's difficult. There's a difference. I have a job, a real job. I can't just... You took a leave of absence this morning." She stared at him. "What?" "Your supervisor received an email at 6 a.m. explaining that you've been offered a temporary contract position with my organization and would be unavailable for the next month. He approved it." "You can't just... How did you..." "Your company does business with several of mine. Your supervisor was accommodating." Adrian checked his watch. "You have an appointment with the hotel manager at 11. Marcus will drive you. He's waiting downstairs." "This is insane. You said that last night. It's still happening." He stood, gathering his phone and a tablet. "I have meetings for the rest of the day. You have my number if emergencies arise, otherwise handle it." "Wait." Lena stood too, panic rising. "I don't even know what I'm supposed to..." "Figure it out. You're smart. You'll manage." He paused at the door. "One more thing." "What?" "Everything you see, everything you hear, everyone you meet, it stays between us. You don't discuss this job with friends. You don't mention my name to family. You certainly don't post about it on social media." His tone stayed conversational, but his eyes had gone cold. "Break that rule and option 1 comes back into play. Understood?" "Yes." "Good. Marcus is waiting." He left. Lena stood alone in the conference room, surrounded by folders and binders and seating charts, trying to remember how to breathe. This was real. This was actually happening. She pulled out her phone and typed a quick text to Ashley. "Got a temporary contract gig. Crazy hours. Might be radio silent for a few weeks. Love you." Then she gathered up the binders. There were 7 of them, and headed for the elevator. Marcus Reeves turned out to be the man who'd done all the talking last night. In daylight, he looked less threatening, late 40s, graying at the temples, the kind of solid, capable presence that probably made him very good at his job. He was leaning against a black SUV when she emerged from the building. "Ms. Carter." "Hi. Ready?" "Not even a little bit." He smiled. an actual smile that reached his eyes. "You'll be fine. Adrian doesn't hire incompetent people. He didn't hire me. He blackmailed me." Tomato, tomato. He opened the passenger door for her. "Hotel manager's name is Richard Preston. He's going to try to upsell you on everything. Don't let him." The drive took 15 minutes. Marcus filled the silence with practical information about the venue, the guest list, and Adrian's expectations. "Has he always been like this?" Lena asked as they pulled up to the hotel's valet stand. "Like what?" "Terrifying." Marcus considered that. "Mr. Voss has had to be hard to survive in his position, but he's fair. Follow the rules, do the work, and you'll be fine. And if I don't, then I'd suggest updating your will." He said it like a joke. She didn't think he was joking. Richard Preston was exactly as difficult as promised. He tried to add charges for things that were clearly already included in the contract. He suggested upgrades that would have doubled the budget. He implied, repeatedly, that a woman her age couldn't possibly handle an event of this magnitude. By the end of the hour-long meeting, Lena wanted to strangle him. Instead, she smiled, declined every upsell, and got every commitment in writing. "That was impressive," Marcus said as they left the hotel. Most people cave to Preston within 20 minutes. Most people probably haven't been threatened with murder recently. Puts things in perspective. He laughed, actually laughed. "Fair point." The rest of the day blurred past in a haze of phone calls, vendor meetings, and endless details. By 6 p.m., Lena had confirmed the catering menu, approved floral arrangements, and resolved a scheduling conflict with the string quartet. She'd also developed a splitting headache and a growing suspicion that she might actually be able to pull this off. Marcus drove her back to the Voss building. "You did good today," he said as she climbed out. "Thanks. See you tomorrow, 9 a.m. "Can't wait." The office was nearly empty when she made it back upstairs. The receptionist had gone home. The lights were dimmed. Only Adrian's office showed signs of life, a glow visible through frosted glass doors. Lena knocked. "Come in." He sat behind his desk, jacket discarded, shirt sleeves rolled up, studying something on dual monitors. He looked exactly as tired as she felt. "How did it go?" "Preston tried to scam me. I didn't let him. Everything's on schedule." "Good." She set the binders on his desk. "I need access to the budget files, the ones Melissa was using. If I'm going to track expenses, I need to see what's already been spent. I'll have them sent to you tonight. Also, the press list needs work. Half these outlets will turn this into a circus. We should limit it to business and lifestyle publications." Adrian looked up at her, one eyebrow raised. "Agreed. Make the changes." "And the seating chart is a disaster. You can't put Senator Morrison next to Judge Chen. They hate each other." "How do you know that?" "I worked the Harbor Lights Gala, remember? I watched them avoid each other all night. Put Morrison at table 4, Chen at table 9. Problem solved." For the first time since she'd met him, Adrian smiled. Not a polite business smile, an actual expression of amusement. "You're going to be good at this." "Don't sound so surprised." "I'm not. I researched you before I made the offer. Your work is excellent. You just needed the right motivation." Being threatened with murder is very motivating. I've found that to be true. They stared at each other across the desk. The silence stretched, not quite comfortable, but not hostile either. Just two people stuck in an impossible situation trying to make it work. "Can I go home now?" Lena finally asked. "Yes. Marcus will..." "I'll take the train." "Marcus will drive you." "Not open for debate." 9 a.m. tomorrow. We'll review the updated materials." Lena nodded and turned to leave. "Miss Carter?" She paused at the door. "Yeah?" "Thank you." The word surprised her. She hadn't expected gratitude from a man who dragged her into this mess. "You're welcome." Marcus was waiting by the elevators. The drive home passed in comfortable silence. When they pulled up outside her building, he handed her a business card. "My number. Call if you need anything. Anything at all." "Even if someone's trying to kill me?" "Especially then." She climbed out, exhausted and wired and still not entirely sure this was real. Tomorrow she'd wake up and do it again. And the day after that. For 3 weeks. 3 weeks to plan the perfect gala for a man who made people disappear. 3 weeks to stay alive. She unlocked her apartment, fed Hemingway, and collapsed on the couch, still wearing her work clothes. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Not Adrian's. Not the one from last night. She opened it anyway. Budget files attached. Review tonight. Questions can wait until morning. A V. Lena looked at the attached documents. Spreadsheets so detailed they probably included the cost of individual napkins. And laughed. This was her life now. One wrong text had changed everything. She opened the first spreadsheet and started reading. The spreadsheets made her eyes cross by midnight. Lena had always been good with numbers, but Adrian's budget files were something else entirely. Line items for things she'd never considered. Contingency funds that seemed excessive until she read the notes explaining why they existed. Vendor contracts with clauses that required a law degree to interpret. She fell asleep on her couch with her laptop balanced on her knees, Hemingway purring on her chest, and woke at 6 a.m. with a crick in her neck and 17 new questions about floral centerpieces. The next 2 weeks became a blur of controlled chaos. Marcus picked her up every morning at 8:30. They'd drive to the Voss building where she'd spend an hour reviewing updates with Adrian before diving into the endless task list. Vendor calls. Site visits. Menu tastings that should have been enjoyable but felt like military operations. Every detail mattered. Every choice had consequences. The ice sculpture, she said on day 4, standing in Adrian's office with a folder full of proposals. We need to cut it. He looked up from his computer. Why? Because it's $12,000 for something that'll melt in 3 hours. That money could go toward better wine or upgraded linens or literally anything more useful. The ice sculpture has been part of this event for 6 years. Then it's time for a change. Adrian leaned back in his chair, studying her. She'd learned to hold his gaze now, learned that looking away first felt like losing some invisible contest. Fine, cut it. What are you replacing it with? Nothing. Sometimes less is more. You sound confident. I am. She wasn't, not really, but she'd discovered that projecting confidence around Adrian Voss was the only way to survive. Show weakness, and he'd push. Stand firm, and he'd listen. He smiled that small smile she was starting to recognize. Approved. What else? Look, the speeches need to be shorter. You have 6 people scheduled to talk. That's 45 minutes of your guests standing around being bored. Cut it to 3 speakers, 5 minutes each. Who gets cut? The CEO from Harman Industries talks too much and says nothing. The state representative will just use it as a campaign platform, and your head of acquisitions has the charisma of a parking meter. Adrian actually laughed at that. Marcus warned me you'd developed opinions. Marcus talks about me? Constantly. He's impressed. That doesn't happen often. Something warm flickered in her chest at that. She ignored it. So can I make the cuts? Yes. But you tell them. I'm not doing your dirty work. Fair enough. She'd made those calls that afternoon, delivered the bad news with apologetic efficiency, and crossed 3 items off her list. Small victories. They added up. The work was exhausting. The hours were brutal. But somewhere around day 8, Lena realized she was enjoying herself. Not the circumstances, not the constant low-level terror of knowing one mistake could have permanent consequences, but the work itself, the problem-solving, the coordination, the satisfaction of seeing chaos slowly transform into order. She was good at this, better than she'd been at her old job where she'd handled small corporate events and product launches. This was bigger, higher stakes, more visibility, more real. You're thinking too hard, Adrian said one evening when she'd stayed late to finalize the lighting design. Most of the office had emptied hours ago. Just the 2 of them, the cleaning crew somewhere on another floor and the city lights stretching beyond the windows. The uplighting in the ballroom. If we go with amber, it's warmer but might clash with the table settings. Blue is safer but feels cold. What does your gut say? Amber. But I'm second-guessing myself. Don't. Your instincts have been right so far. She glanced at him. He'd loosened his tie, rolled up his sleeves. Late-night Adrian looked younger somehow, less intimidating, almost approachable. Can I ask you something? The words came out before she could stop them. You can ask. I might not answer. Why this event? Why does it matter so much? He was quiet for a long moment, fingers tapping a slow rhythm on his desk. The legitimacy. What? Most of what I do lives in shadows. This gala, it's public, visible. It lets me stand next to senators and CEOs and people whose reputations are spotless, and it makes me look like I belong there. He met her eyes. Perception shapes reality. If enough important people treat me like I'm legitimate, eventually I become legitimate. That's surprisingly honest. You asked. Most people would lie, make it about charity or whatever. I'm not most people, and you're smart enough to see through a lie anyway. He closed his laptop. It's late. Go home. Marcus already left, but there's a car service downstairs. I can take the train. No. That word again. Absolute. Non-negotiable. She'd learned not to argue. Fine. Thank you. She gathered her things but paused at the door. Adrian? He looked up. The amber lighting. You're sure? I'm sure. The gala was now 12 days away. Lena had moved past terror into a state of focused determination that felt almost meditative. Her apartment had become a secondary office, printouts covering every surface, sticky notes on the bathroom mirror reminding her about last-minute details, her laptop permanently open on the kitchen counter. Ashley had texted 3 times asking if she was alive. Lena had responded with increasingly vague reassurances that yes, everything was fine, just busy, would explain later. Her sister had called once. Lena had let it go to voicemail and sent a text promising to visit Providence soon. The lies were piling up. But what else could she do? Tell them the truth? On day 16, everything nearly fell apart. Lena was at the hotel doing a final walkthrough with the catering manager when her phone rang. Adrian's number. I need you back here now. The tone made her stomach drop. What's wrong? Just get here. She made excuses to the catering manager and practically ran to where Marcus was waiting. The drive back felt endless. Adrian's office had 3 additional people in it when she arrived. 2 men in expensive suits she didn't recognize, and a woman who looked like she could kill someone with her car keys. Ms. Carter, Adrian said, voice carefully neutral, we have a problem. What kind of problem? One of the men, silver hair, hard eyes, spoke up. Someone leaked the guest list. Her blood went cold. What? How? That's what we're trying to determine. It hit 3 gossip blogs an hour ago. Full names, table assignments, +1s, everything. But I've been so careful. The files are password protected. We know it wasn't you, Adrian interrupted. We've already traced it. One of the hotel staff accessed the system during your walkthrough last week. Relief and horror crashed over her simultaneously. So what does this mean? It means we have a security nightmare, the woman said. Half these guests are now targets for anyone who wants access to them. We'll have press camped outside, protesters, probably a few psychos who think they can crash the event. Can we cancel? No, Adrian said flatly. Canceling makes me look weak. We adapt. How? He turned to Marcus, who'd appeared silently in the doorway. Double the security team. Coordinate with hotel management on entry protocols. Anyone not on the approved list gets turned away. No exceptions. Yes, sir. Ms. Carter. Adrian's attention swung back to her. You need to contact every guest personally. Reassure them. Let them know we're handling it. That's 300 people. 287. I'll take the politicians and business partners. You handle everyone else. That's still... Do you need help? She thought about the impossible task, the timeline, the fact that some of these people would absolutely panic when they heard about the leak. Then she thought about what would happen if she said yes, if she admitted she couldn't handle it. No, I've got it. Good, start now. The silver-haired man and the woman left. Adrian dismissed Marcus with a gesture, and suddenly it was just the 2 of them again. I'm sorry, Lena said. For what? I should have been more careful, should have anticipated. You did everything right. This wasn't your failure. He rubbed his eyes, and for the first time she saw the exhaustion underneath the control. It's the nature of this work. Something always goes wrong. What matters is how we respond. We? He looked at her. You're part of this now, whether you intended to be or not. The weight of those words settled over her. He was right. Somewhere in the past 16 days, this had stopped being something she was being forced to do and started being something she was choosing. She could have run, could have gone to the police, consequences be damned, could have disappeared and hoped he wouldn't find her, but she hadn't. She'd stayed. She'd worked. She'd started to care about whether this gala succeeded or failed. I'll make the calls, she said. She spent the next 6 hours on the phone. Some guests were understanding. Some were furious. Senator Morrison threatened to withdraw entirely until she talked him down by promising a private security detail. A tech CEO's wife demanded compensation for the emotional distress. Lena promised to send flowers and somehow made it sound sincere. By 11 p.m., she'd contacted everyone on her portion of the list. Her voice was hoarse. Her head pounded. Her fingers ached from typing follow-up emails. Adrian appeared in the conference room doorway with 2 cups of coffee. How bad? He asked. 3 cancellations. Everyone else is still coming, but half of them are pissed. That's better than I expected. He set 1 cup in front of her. Drink. You sound terrible. I feel terrible. He sat across from her, and they drank coffee in silence while the city hummed far below. This had become oddly normal, late nights in the office, just the 2 of them, the usual barriers dropping slightly when no one else was around to witness it. Can I ask you something else? Lena said. Another honest question? You don't have to answer. Ask. The woman who was here earlier, the scary one, who is she? Vera. She runs security for my Eastern operations. Is she always that intense? Yes. She's also saved my life twice, so I tolerate the intensity. What about the men? Business partners. They have concerns about the gala. I addressed them. By doing what? He smiled. Reminding them that I don't fail, and neither do the people who work for me. No pressure. You're handling it fine. I'm terrified. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. Overconfidence gets you killed. She wanted to ask if he was speaking from experience, but his phone buzzed and the moment passed. He checked the screen, frowned, and stood. I need to handle this. The car service will take you home. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be long. Every day was long now, but she was starting to understand that was the point. This wasn't just about planning an event. It was a test. Adrian was watching to see how she handled pressure, how she solved problems, whether she'd break under stress. So far, she hadn't broken. She was determined to keep it that way. The next morning brought a new crisis. The string quartet had double booked and couldn't perform. Lena spent 3 hours calling every classical ensemble in the city before finding a replacement. They cost twice as much, but she didn't care. She approved the expense and moved on. Day 18, the custom linens arrived in the wrong shade. She sent them back and expedited new ones at a premium. Day 19. 2 major donors got into a public argument on social media. Lena rearranged the seating chart to put them at opposite ends of the ballroom. Day 20. Adrian's sound system vendor went bankrupt. She found a new one, negotiated a rush installation, and confirmed setup would be complete the day before the event. Each problem felt insurmountable until she solved it. Then another one appeared. You're getting good at this, Marcus said on day 21 as they drove to yet another meeting. The crisis management. I hate it. But you're good at it. There's a difference. Adrian said something similar. He's usually right about people. Lena stared out the window at the city sliding past. What's he like? When he's not being terrifying? Marcus was quiet for a moment. He's loyal. If you're in his circle, he'll protect you with everything he has. He's smart, smarter than most people realize. And he's fair in his own way. But he's also ruthless. He's made decisions most people couldn't live with, done things that would haunt you. Marcus glanced at her. Don't mistake efficiency for cruelty. Everything he does has a purpose. That's not reassuring. It's not meant to be. It's meant to be honest. The gala was now 4 days away. Lena had stopped sleeping more than a few hours a night. Her apartment was a disaster. She'd started keeping spare clothes at the office because half the time she worked so late it wasn't worth going home. Adrian had noticed. "You look exhausted," he said on day 22 when she arrived at 9 a.m. with visible dark circles under her eyes. "I'm fine." "You're not. When's the last time you slept a full night?" "I don't remember." He closed his laptop. "Go home. Take the rest of the day off." "I can't. There's too much. That's not a suggestion. You're no good to me if you collapse from exhaustion. Marcus will drive you. I'll see you tomorrow." "Adrian, go." She went. Marcus drove her home in silence, probably under orders not to let her convince him to turn around. When they pulled up outside her building, he handed her a paper bag she hadn't noticed him carrying. "From Mr. Voss. He said you probably haven't eaten today." Inside was a sandwich from the cafe on the ground floor of his building, a bottle of water, and a note in handwriting she now recognized. "Sleep. That's an order. AV." Lena climbed the stairs to her apartment, fed Hemingway, ate the sandwich, and promptly fell asleep on top of her covers fully clothed. She woke 14 hours later feeling almost human. The final 3 days passed in a controlled sprint. Final confirmations. Last-minute adjustments. A walkthrough at the hotel where everything looked perfect. The lighting, the table settings, the stage where the abbreviated speeches would happen. "It's beautiful," she said, standing in the center of the empty ballroom. Adrian stood beside her, hands in his pockets, surveying the space. "You did this!" "We did this." "No, this was you." He turned to face her. "I provided resources. You created something worth seeing." The compliment caught her off guard. "Thank you. I mean it. Whatever happens tomorrow night, you should be proud." Tomorrow night. The gala. The finish line. Lena had been so focused on getting there that she hadn't really thought about what came after. The deal had been simple. Plan the event, walk away, forget this ever happened. But standing in that ballroom with Adrian, seeing the result of 3 weeks of brutal work, she realized she didn't want to forget. This had changed her, changed how she saw herself, what she thought she was capable of. "What time should I be here tomorrow?" she asked. 4 p.m. Guests arrive at 7. That gives us 3 hours for final setup and emergencies. There won't be emergencies. There are always emergencies. He was right. The next day brought a dozen small disasters. A waiter called in sick. One of the floral centerpieces arrived damaged. The valet service sent half the staff they'd promised. Lena handled all of it with the kind of calm efficiency she'd developed over the past 3 weeks. She found a replacement waiter from the hotel's restaurant staff. She rearranged the seating to hide the damaged centerpiece until a replacement arrived. She personally directed traffic in the parking area until additional valet staff showed up. By 6:45 p.m., everything was perfect. The ballroom glowed with amber uplighting. The tables gleamed with crystal and china. The stage was set for speeches. Security personnel in formal wear blended seamlessly with the hotel staff. Lena stood in a hallway off the main entrance, wearing the black dress Adrian had sent to her apartment that morning, with a note saying simply, "You'll need this." It fit perfectly. She didn't want to think about how he'd known her size. "Ready?" Marcus appeared beside her, looking sharp in a tuxedo. "As I'll ever be." "You'll be great. Just stick to the plan." The plan was simple. Greet guests at the entrance alongside Adrian, direct them to their tables, manage the evening's flow from a discreet position near the back of the room. Easy, professional, survivable. Adrian was waiting near the entrance, talking quietly with Vera. He looked different in a tuxedo, less like a man who ran criminal enterprises and more like someone who belonged in magazines. Polished, powerful, dangerous in a completely different way. He saw her, and something flickered across his face too quickly to read. "You look nice," he said. "So do you." Vera rolled her eyes. "If you two are done, the first guests are arriving." The next 3 hours became a carefully choreographed performance. Lena greeted senators and CEOs, tech moguls and celebrities, everyone who mattered in the city's social hierarchy. She made small talk, remembered names, directed people to the right places with a smile that felt natural, even though her heart was racing. Adrian stayed close, not hovering, just present, available when she needed backup, invisible when she didn't. They were a good team. She'd noticed that during the planning process, but seeing it in action was different. They moved around each other with practiced ease, anticipated problems, covered each other's blind spots. At 8:30, the speeches began. Senator Morrison went first, keeping it to exactly 5 minutes. The tech CEO followed, making jokes that actually landed. Adrian went last. Lena watched from the back of the room as he took the stage. His voice carried authority without being loud. He thanked the guests for coming, highlighted the charities they were supporting, made it sound like this was about genuine philanthropy and not reputation management. He was good at this. Better than she'd expected. The applause when he finished was genuine. Dinner service began. Lena circulated through the room, checking on details, solving small problems before they became big ones. A guest had a seafood allergy that wasn't noted. She arranged an alternative meal. Someone's jacket had been misplaced by coat check. She tracked it down in 3 minutes. Small things, but they mattered. At 9:45, she stepped outside for air. The hotel's terrace overlooked the harbor. The night was cool, the city lights reflecting off dark water. Lena leaned against the railing and allowed herself one moment to breathe. They'd done it. Against every odd, every obstacle, every crisis, they'd actually pulled this off. Hiding? She turned to find Adrian stepping onto the terrace. Taking a break. Everything okay inside? Perfect. You've earned a moment. He joined her at the railing. This is when you tell me you're relieved it's almost over. I am, but also what? She hesitated, then decided honesty was easier than pretending. Also, I'm going to miss it. The work, the challenge, even the chaos. You surprised yourself. Yeah, I did. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the harbor. The sounds of the gala drifted through the open doors, laughter, music, the gentle clatter of dinner service. What happens after tonight? Lena asked. You go back to your life, I go back to mine, like we agreed. Right, the deal. Unless, she looked at him, unless what? Adrian turned to face her fully. Unless you want to stay. Not for the gala, for the work. I could use someone like you, someone capable, smart, not afraid to push back when I'm wrong. You're offering me a job? I'm offering you a choice. Her heart kicked hard against her ribs. This was crazy. She should say no. Should walk away while she still could, go back to her normal life with her normal job and pretend these 3 weeks had been a bad dream. But she didn't want to pretend, didn't want normal. I need time to think. Take all the time you need. The offer stands. He checked his watch. We should get back. Silent auction closes in 30 minutes. They walked back inside together, and Lena tried to focus on the remaining tasks instead of the decision now sitting heavy in her chest. The auction went smoothly. The totals exceeded projections. Guests mingled and networked and seemed genuinely pleased with how the evening had unfolded. At 11 p.m., people started leaving. Lena stood near the entrance again, thanking them for coming, accepting compliments on the event with practiced grace. Senator Morrison actually shook her hand. Excellent work, Miss Carter. Best gala I've attended in years. Thank you, Senator. If you ever need a reference, you have my number. By midnight, the ballroom was empty except for cleanup crews. Lena walked through one final time, checking for forgotten items, making sure nothing had been damaged. It was over. She found Adrian in the hotel bar, tie loosened, drink in hand. Vera sat across from him, and they stopped talking when Lena approached. All clear, she said. Hotel manager has the final numbers. Everything's settled. Good. Adrian gestured to the empty chair. Sit. You've earned a drink. She sat. Vera signaled the bartender, and a glass of wine appeared. Lena didn't remember ordering it, but wasn't about to complain. To not failing, Vera said, raising her glass. To surviving, Lena countered. They drank. I need to go, Vera said, standing. Early flight. Adrian, we'll talk next week about the shipment. Agreed. She left, and then it was just the two of them in the mostly empty bar. You did good tonight, Adrian said. We did good. Stop deflecting the compliment. Fine. I did good. Better. He finished his drink. Have you thought about what I asked? About the job? Yes. Lena stared into her wine glass, watching the liquid catch the light. If I say yes, what does that mean? What would I actually be doing? Event coordination, legitimate business operations, nothing that would get you arrested. He paused. But you'd be in my world. You'd see things, know things. There's no going back from that. And if I say no? Then you walk away. Clean break. I'll make sure there are no consequences. You'd really let me go, just like that? I don't keep people against their will. That's not how I operate. His eyes met hers. But I hope you stay. The honesty in those words hit harder than any threat could have. Lena set down her glass. I'll give you an answer tomorrow. That fair? More than fair. Marcus drove her home through empty streets. When they pulled up outside her building, she sat in the car for a moment, not quite ready to leave. He's serious, you know, Marcus said, about the offer. I know. It's not a trap. I know that too. She looked at him. Would you take it? If you were me? I did take it. 15 years ago. Haven't regretted it once. That was answer enough. Lena went upstairs, showered off the evening, and lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Hemingway curled up on her chest, purring steadily. 3 weeks ago, she'd been terrified. Certain she was going to die for sending one stupid text message. Now she was considering willingly walking deeper into the world that had terrified her. But it wasn't terror she felt anymore. It was possibility. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number that she somehow knew was Adrian. You were extraordinary tonight. She smiled and typed back. So were you. Tomorrow she'd make her decision. Tonight, she'd let herself feel proud of what they'd accomplished. One wrong text had brought her here. Maybe it hadn't been wrong after all. She didn't sleep. Couldn't. Her mind kept circling back to the same question. Stay or go? Safety or risk? The life she knew or the one she was beginning to want? At 6 a.m., she gave up, made coffee, and stared at her laptop. Her real job, the one at Meridian Marketing, had probably moved on without her. A month was a long time in that world. Someone else was handling her accounts now, sitting at her desk, fielding calls from clients who'd forgotten her name. The thought didn't bother her as much as it should have. She opened her email and found 3 messages from Adrian, all sent after 2 a.m. Budget reconciliation for the gala, final vendor payments, a detailed breakdown of what had worked and what could be improved next time. Next time. Like he already knew her answer. Maybe he did. Maybe she'd been obvious last night, standing on that terrace, admitting she didn't want to walk away. Her phone rang. Ashley. Lena almost didn't answer, but guilt won out. Hey. Oh, she lives. I was starting to think you'd been kidnapped. Just busy, really busy, with the mysterious contract job you still haven't explained. Ashley's tone had an edge. They'd been friends since college. She could hear evasion from a mile away. Lena, what's going on? I told you, temporary work, it's almost done. That's not an answer. You disappear for a month, barely respond to texts, and now you sound weird. Talk to me. Lena closed her eyes. The lies were getting heavier. I can't. Can't or won't. Both. Silence stretched across the line. Then Ashley sighed. Is it legal? Yes. Are you safe? I think so. Yeah. That's not exactly reassuring. It's the best I can do right now. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry, just be careful, okay? Whatever this is. I will, I promise. They said goodbye and Lena set the phone down, feeling like she'd just lied to a priest. Ashley deserved better. Her sister deserved better. Everyone in her normal life deserved an explanation she couldn't give. Because how could she explain Adrian Voss? How could she make them understand that the man who'd threatened her life a month ago now felt like someone she could trust? She couldn't. So she wouldn't try. At 9 a.m., she showered, dressed in jeans and a sweater, no more business clothes, the gala was over, and took the train downtown. Not to the Voss building, to a coffee shop 3 blocks away, where she could think without Adrian's presence influencing the decision. She ordered a latte and sat by the window, watching the city wake up. Saturday morning, people out for runs, couples walking dogs, normal lives unfolding in normal ways. Her phone buzzed. Marcus. Mr. Voss wants to know if you need more time. She typed back. Tell him I'll have an answer by noon, 3 hours. That felt right. Enough time to think it through properly, not so long that she'd overthink herself into paralysis. She pulled out a notebook and drew a line down the middle of a blank page. Pros and cons. The most basic decision-making tool in existence. Stay. Challenging work, real responsibility, financial security, proximity to Adrian. She crossed out that last one. This wasn't about him. Couldn't be about him. That way led to complications she wasn't ready to examine. Leave. Safety, normalcy. No more lies. Freedom from whatever darkness lived in Adrian's world. The problem was that safety felt boring now. Normalcy felt small. She'd spent 3 weeks operating at a level she hadn't known she was capable of, solving problems that mattered, making decisions that affected powerful people. Going back to planning product launches and corporate mixers felt like putting on clothes that no longer fit. But staying meant accepting that she'd never be completely safe again. Meant living adjacent to violence and crime even if she wasn't directly participating. Meant becoming someone her friends and family wouldn't recognize. The coffee went cold while she stared at her list. At 11:30, she made the call. Adrian answered on the first ring. Lena, I'll stay. On 3 conditions. I'm listening. 1. I only work on legitimate operations. No drugs, no guns, nothing that puts me in legal jeopardy. Agreed. 2. I get a real salary. Market rate for someone with my skills, not whatever you think you can get away with paying me. Also agreed. Anything else? She took a breath. 3. If I want out, I can leave. No threats, no consequences. A clean exit. The pause lasted 5 seconds that felt like 5 hours. That's the one I can't promise, Adrian said finally. Her stomach dropped. Why not? Because once you're in my world, you know too much. I can promise you'll be safe. I can promise no one will hurt you. But I can't promise you can just walk away whenever you want. That's not how this works. So I'm trapped. No, you're committed. There's a difference. His voice softened slightly. I won't keep you prisoner, Lena, but if you do this, you need to understand what you're choosing. This isn't a job you quit when you get bored. The people in my world don't forget faces or names or information. You're saying I'd be a liability. I'm saying you'd be protected. As long as you're with me, no one touches you. But that protection comes with conditions. She should hang up. Should tell him to forget it, that she'd made a mistake, that she wanted her normal life back. Instead, she said, how long? Minimum 2 years. After that, we reassess. If you still want out and I believe you're not a risk, we can discuss terms. 2 years. It sounded like a prison sentence. It also sounded like opportunity. I need it in writing, a contract, legal and binding. I'll have my lawyers draft it today. You'll have it Monday. Then we have a deal. Good. Can you come to the office this afternoon? We should discuss your first project. I thought I'd get at least a weekend off after the gala. You thought wrong. 3 p.m.? She almost laughed. Of course he wanted her to start immediately. Fine. 3 p.m. Lena? Yeah? Welcome to the team. The line went dead. Lena sat in the coffee shop for another 10 minutes, staring at her phone, wondering if she'd just made the best or worst decision of her life. Probably both. She took the train back to her apartment, fed Hemingway, and changed into something more professional. If she was doing this, she was doing it right. At 2:45, she walked into the Voss building lobby and rode the elevator to the 27th floor feeling like she'd never left. The receptionist, a different woman than before, younger, sharper, looked up as she entered. Ms. Carter, Mr. Voss is expecting you. Conference room. Adrian was already there along with Marcus and 2 people she didn't recognize. A man in his 50s with glasses and a leather portfolio, and a woman who looked like she'd walked off a fashion runway. Lena, this is David Chen, my primary attorney, and Isabel Moreau, who runs my European acquisitions. She shook hands with both, trying not to feel intimidated by the fact that she was clearly the least important person in the room. David's brought the contract, Adrian continued, gesturing to the portfolio. Take your time reviewing it. Ask questions. I want you comfortable with the terms. The contract was 43 pages. Lena read every word. Salary, more than she'd been making at Meridian, plus performance bonuses. Benefits, comprehensive, including healthcare that covered things she'd never heard of. Duties, event coordination, business development, client relations, special projects as assigned. The exit clause was there too, exactly as Adrian had described. 2 years minimum commitment. After that, termination by mutual agreement with a 6-month notice period and non-compete provisions. The non-compete says I can't work for any business operating in similar markets for 3 years after leaving. David nodded. Standard protection. We can't have trade secrets walking out the door. This basically prevents me from working in event planning anywhere in the city. Not anywhere, Adrian said, just for direct competitors. You could still work in marketing, consulting, hospitality. You just couldn't organize events for anyone I consider a rival. And who decides who's a rival? I do. She looked at him across the table. His expression was neutral, but she could see the calculation behind it. He was giving her an out if she wanted it, a reason to walk away before signing. She kept reading. Non-disclosure agreements, arbitration clauses, provisions about company property, and confidential information. Standard stuff, mostly, except for the sections about security protocols and emergency procedures. What's this about mandatory security training? Marcus spoke up. Everyone who works closely with Mr. Voss goes through basic security orientation, how to recognize threats, what to do in various scenarios, that kind of thing. You think I'm going to be in danger? I think preparation prevents panic, Adrian said. You'll spend 2 days with Marcus learning protocols. It's routine. Nothing about this was routine, but she signed anyway, initialing each page, her handwriting getting messier as exhaustion caught up with her. When she finished, David collected the documents, made copies, and handed her a set. Welcome aboard, Ms. Carter. I'm sure we'll be seeing a lot of each other. That sounds ominous. He smiled. I handle all of Mr. Voss's contracts. You'll be surprised how often that becomes necessary. He and Isabel left, and then it was just her, Adrian, and Marcus. Your first project, Adrian said, pulling up something on his tablet. I'm acquiring a hotel property in Newport. The previous owners ran it into the ground. I want to relaunch it as a luxury destination. You'll coordinate the renovation, manage the opening event, and help develop the marketing strategy. Lena's mind was already spinning. Timeline? I'll sell 6 months from now. The building needs significant work, but I have contractors ready to start Monday. Budget? Flexible. Within reason. Define reason. He named a number that made her blink. That's generous. That's what excellence costs. He slid the tablet toward her. Photos and initial assessments are here. I want your thoughts by Wednesday. What works, what doesn't, what we should prioritize. She scrolled through images of a beautiful but neglected property overlooking the ocean. High ceilings, original molding, the kind of bones that promise something spectacular if handled correctly. This could be amazing. That's why I'm giving it to you. Marcus stood. I should go coordinate with security about the Newport site. Lena, we'll schedule your training for next week. Sounds good. He left, and silence settled over the conference room. Just her and Adrian, like so many late nights during the gala prep. You didn't have to say yes, he said quietly. I know. So why did you? She looked up from the tablet. Honestly, because walking away felt like giving up. And I don't want to be the person who gives up when things get complicated. This is more than complicated. I know that too. She set down the tablet, but I'm choosing it anyway, so you better make sure I don't regret it. Something shifted in his expression. Not quite a smile, but close. I'll do my best. Her phone buzzed, a text from her sister. Mom's birthday next weekend. You coming to Providence? Reality crashed back. Her family, her old life, all the people who had no idea what she'd just committed to. I need next Saturday off, she said. Family? Yeah, my mom's birthday. Of course, take Sunday too. You'll need the break. She typed back to her sister. I'll be there, bringing wine. The response came immediately. Good. We need to talk about this job you won't tell me about. Lena sighed and pocketed her phone. This is going to be interesting. Lying to your family? Trying to explain without lying. Tell them you work in business development for a real estate investment firm. It's not technically false. It's not technically true either. Welcome to my world. Nothing's ever completely true or false. Just shades of gray. She wanted to argue, but he was right. She'd already learned that. The gala had been legitimate charity work. It had also been reputation laundering for a man who built his empire on activities she still didn't fully understand. Both things were true. I should go, she said. Start reviewing this project properly. One more thing. Adrian pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket and slid it across the table. Your signing bonus. Tradition for new senior staff. She opened it and nearly dropped it. The check inside had more zeros than she'd expected. This is too much. It's standard. David can show you the precedent if you don't believe me. I don't even know what to do with this much money. Save it, invest it, pay off debts, whatever you need. He stood. Marcus will set up your office on Monday. Top floor, 3 doors down from mine. You'll have an assistant starting Tuesday. I get an assistant? You think you can manage a hotel renovation without one? Fair point. She gathered her things, contract copies, tablet, the check she still couldn't quite process. At the door, she paused. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank me by succeeding. I will. The weekend passed in a blur of research. Lena spent Saturday diving into hospitality industry trends, luxury hotel marketing, renovation timelines. She made notes, sketched ideas, started building a preliminary plan. Sunday, she drove to Providence. Her mother's house looked the same as always, small, tidy, the garden her mom obsessed over in full bloom. Her sister's car was already in the driveway. Lena grabbed the wine she'd brought and walked in without knocking. There she is! Her mom appeared from the kitchen, flower on her hands, smile wide. I thought you'd forgotten about us. Never. Happy birthday, Mom. They hugged, and for a moment everything felt normal, safe, uncomplicated. Then her sister appeared. Lena, kitchen, now. Subtle as always, Rachel. I don't do subtle. They ended up at the small kitchen table while their mom fussed with something in the oven. Rachel crossed her arms and fixed Lena with the look that had terrified her in high school. Talk. About what? About whatever the hell you've been doing for the past month. Ashley called me, said you've been weird and secretive and basically disappeared. I got a new job, that's all. What kind of job makes you drop off the face of the earth? The demanding kind. Lena. She took a breath. I'm working in business development for a real estate investment firm. It's intense, the hours are crazy, but it's good money and good experience. Not technically a lie. Adrian would be proud. Rachel studied her face. You're leaving something out. I'm leaving a lot out, but I'm okay. I promise. Is it legal? Yes. Are you safe? Rachel, I'm fine. Better than fine, actually. This job, it's challenging in ways my old one never was. I'm learning things, doing things that matter. Her sister's expression softened slightly. You seem different. I am different. In a good way, I think. And you can't tell me more than that? Not yet, but I will, when I can. Rachel sighed and reached across to squeeze her hand. Okay, but if you need help, if anything goes wrong, I'll call, I swear. Their mom reappeared with wine glasses. Are you two plotting something? Always, Rachel said, and the moment passed. The rest of the evening was normal. Birthday cake, bad jokes, stories about Rachel's kids and her mom's bridge club drama. Lena laughed and participated and felt the distance between this life and her new one growing wider. She drove back to Boston Sunday night feeling split in half. Part of her wanted to stay in Providence, where everything was simple and safe. Part of her couldn't wait to get back to the city, to the Newport project, to the work that made her feel alive. Monday morning, she walked into the Voss building at 8:30 a.m. and found her new office exactly where Adrian said it would be. Corner space, windows overlooking the city, furniture that probably cost more than her car. Her name was already on the door. Lena Carter, Senior Development Director. A woman in her late 20s knocked on the open door. Ms. Carter, I'm Amy Chen, your assistant. Related to David? Cousin, he recommended me when Mr. Voss mentioned he needed someone for you. She held up a tablet. I've already set up your calendar and email. You have a meeting with the Newport contractors at 10, lunch with Isabel to discuss European expansion opportunities at noon, and Mr. Voss wants to see you at 3 to review your preliminary plans. Lena blinked. You work fast. I've been doing this a while. Coffee preferences? Black, strong, frequently. I'll make a supply run. Amy smiled. Welcome to the team. Fair warning, the learning curve here is steep, but if you survive the first month, it gets easier. Encouraging. I try. The contractors' meeting went well. The noon lunch with Isabel was intimidating but productive. By 3 p.m., Lena had a clearer vision for the Newport property and at least 17 new questions. Adrian listened to her presentation without interrupting, his expression unreadable. Thoughts? She asked when she finished. You want to completely redesign the lobby. The current layout doesn't work. Too closed off, no flow. Opening it up will make the space feel twice as large. That's expensive. So is having a lobby that makes guests want to turn around and leave? He leaned back in his chair, considering. Show me the renderings by Friday. If they're good, we'll proceed. I'll need an architect. I know 3 firms that specialize in historic preservation. Amy has their contacts. Of course she does. Is there anything Amy doesn't have? A personal life, probably. She's very dedicated. Lena spent the next 3 days working harder than she had during the gala. The Newport project was bigger, more complex, with more moving pieces and higher stakes. Every decision mattered. Every detail needed attention. She loved it. Thursday evening, she was still at her desk at 8 p.m., reviewing architectural drawings, when Adrian appeared in her doorway. You're here late. So are you. I live here half the time. What's your excuse? Perfectionism. She gestured to the papers spread across her desk. I want these renderings right before I show you. He walked over, studying the drawings. You changed the entrance approach. The original design was too predictable. This creates more drama, better first impressions. I like it. Good, because I already told the architect to proceed with this version. He looked at her, one eyebrow raised. Confident. You hired me to make decisions. I'm making them. So you are. He pulled a folder from under his arm. Security briefing for tomorrow. Marcus wants you to review it before your training session. She took the folder. It was thick. What exactly does this training involve? Situational awareness, threat recognition, basic self-defense, how to spot surveillance? That seems excessive for an event planner. You're not just an event planner anymore, you're senior staff. That makes you visible, potentially vulnerable. His expression was serious. I take care of my people, Lena. That includes making sure they can take care of themselves. The weight of that settled over her. She wasn't just planning parties and managing renovations. She was part of his organization now, his world, with all the danger that implied. Okay, I'll read it tonight. Good. And Lena? Yeah? Go home. Get some sleep. The Newport project isn't going anywhere. She wanted to argue, but he was right. Her eyes were starting to cross from staring at drawings. Fine, but I'm taking these renderings with me. Of course you are. Marcus's training started at 9 a.m. Friday in a private gym 2 blocks from the Voss building. Lena showed up in workout clothes, expecting something manageable. She was wrong. We're going to start with awareness, Marcus said, walking her through the space. Most people go through life half asleep, not paying attention to who's around them, who's watching, what's changed in their environment. And that's bad? That's how you get hurt or killed. He handed her a water bottle. I want you to walk around this block. Come back and tell me everything you noticed. It seemed easy. She walked, paid attention, came back. Okay, there was a coffee shop on the corner, a guy in a suit waiting for the bus, construction happening at the building across the street. What color was the bus? She blinked. I don't know. What was the guy in the suit carrying? I didn't notice. How many workers at the construction site? I wasn't counting. Marcus nodded. Exactly. You saw things, but you didn't observe them. There's a difference. Let's try again. They did it 5 more times. By the 6th circuit, Lena could tell him that the bus was blue and white. The suited man carried a black messenger bag and checked his watch every 30 seconds. And there were 4 construction workers, one of whom kept looking at his phone instead of working. Better, Marcus said. That's the foundation. Now let's talk about threat recognition. The next 2 hours were intense. He showed her how to spot surveillance, how to identify escape routes, how to trust her instincts when something felt wrong. They practiced scenarios, someone following her on the street, a confrontation in a parking garage, an unexpected visitor at her apartment. The goal isn't to make you paranoid, Marcus said during a break. It's to make you prepared. Adrian has enemies. Some of them might try to get to him through people he cares about. He doesn't care about me. Marcus gave her a look. You sure about that? She didn't answer. The afternoon session was self-defense, basic strikes, how to break holds, vulnerable points on an attacker's body. Lena had never thrown a punch in her life. By the end of the day, she'd thrown hundreds. You're a natural, Marcus said as they finished. Most people freeze up. You don't. I'm too tired to freeze. He laughed. Same time tomorrow. We'll work on more advanced scenarios. Saturday's session was even harder. Sunday, Lena could barely move. But when she showed up Monday morning, she felt different, more alert, more confident, more dangerous. Adrian noticed. Marcus says you did well. I'm sore in places I didn't know existed. That means it worked. He gestured to her office. The Newport renderings. Let's see them. She'd spent the weekend refining them between training sessions. Now, spreading them across her desk, she felt the familiar nervous energy of presenting important work. Adrian studied each drawing in silence. Then he nodded. Approved. Move forward with construction. Relief flooded through her. Really? You doubted yourself? I doubted you'd approve spending this much on aesthetics. Aesthetics are what separate a hotel from a great hotel. You understand that. That's why I gave you this project. He rolled up the drawings. I'm impressed, Lena. Genuinely. The compliment warmed her more than it should have. Thank you. Don't let it go to your head. We still have 5 months of work ahead. I know. He started to leave, then paused. Dinner tonight. The team usually gets together Monday evenings. You should come. Is that mandatory? No. But it would be good for you to know people better, build relationships. She thought about her empty apartment, the takeout containers in her fridge, another night alone. Okay, where and when? Vittorio's, 8 p.m. I'll have Marcus pick you up. The restaurant was upscale Italian in the North End, private room in the back. Lena arrived to find a dozen people already there, faces she recognized from the office, others she'd never seen. Isabel waved her over. Lena, come sit. I want you to meet Paolo. He runs our construction division. The next 2 hours passed in a blur of introductions, food, wine, and surprisingly normal conversation. These people, Adrian's people, weren't the criminals she'd imagined. They were professionals, smart, funny, dedicated to their work, human in ways that surprised her. Adrian sat at the head of the table, relaxed in a way she rarely saw at the office. He told stories, laughed at jokes, made everyone feel included. This was his family, not by blood, but by choice and circumstance. And now she was part of it. You okay? Marcus asked quietly. He sat next to her, working through his second plate of pasta. Yeah, just processing. It's a lot. The first few weeks especially. Does it get easier? Some parts, others get more complicated. He took a drink. But you're handling it better than most. Adrian made a good choice bringing you in. Even though I was basically blackmailed into it, especially because of that. You could have run, could have fought, could have made this difficult. Instead, you adapted. That's rare. Across the table, Adrian met her eyes, raised his glass slightly in acknowledgement. She raised hers back. 2 weeks into her new position, Lena had settled into a rhythm. Morning meetings, site visits, endless phone calls with contractors and designers. The Newport project was moving forward faster than expected. The lobby renovation had begun. She'd hired a consultant for the marketing strategy. Everything was going perfectly, which was, of course, when things went wrong. She was in her office Thursday afternoon when Amy knocked urgently. "Lena, we have a problem." "What kind?" "The Newport site. There's been an incident." Her blood went cold. "What happened?" "I don't have details. Mr. Voss wants you there immediately. Marcus is waiting downstairs." The drive to Newport took an hour. Marcus wouldn't tell her anything, just kept his eyes on the road and his jaw tight. When they arrived, she understood why. Half the lobby was destroyed. Not from construction, from deliberate damage. Spray paint across the walls, broken fixtures, shattered windows. Adrian stood in the center of the wreckage, phone to his ear, face carved from stone. "How bad?" Lena asked, approaching. He ended the call. "Bad. 100,000 in damages, maybe more. 3 weeks of delays at minimum." "Who did this?" "That's what I'm working to find out." He looked at her. "This is the part I warned you about. The part where my world gets messy." Lena stared at the destruction, at weeks of work ruined, at the message this sent. Someone wanted to hurt Adrian, and they'd chosen her project to do it. "What do we do?" "We rebuild. We move forward. We show them this doesn't stop us." His eyes were hard. "And then we find out who's responsible and make sure they understand what happens when they come after what's mine." The steel in his voice sent a shiver down her spine. This was the man who made people disappear. And somehow, she was standing beside him. The wreckage looked worse in daylight. Lena stood in what was supposed to be the restored lobby, staring at spray-painted obscenities across walls that had taken weeks to repair. Glass crunched under her feet. The smell of paint and destruction hung heavy in the air. 3 weeks of delays is optimistic, the head contractor said, surveying the damage. "Some of this is structural. We'll need inspections before we can even start cleanup." "How much?" Lena asked, her voice hollow. "Beyond the 100,000 Mr. Voss mentioned? Could be double that if we find hidden problems." She nodded, barely hearing him. Her mind was stuck on a single thought. Someone had done this deliberately. Not random vandalism, a message, a threat. And she was part of that message now. Adrian's hand touched her shoulder, gentle but grounding. "Give us a moment," he said to the contractor. When they were alone in the destroyed space, he turned her to face him. "I need you to understand what's happening here. Someone's trying to hurt you through the project. Someone's trying to hurt me through you." His expression was grave. "The project is just property, money, replaceable. But you—" He stopped, jaw tightening. "Drago chose this site because you've been here almost every day. Because my people talk about how invested you are, how much you care about this work. He's making you a target." The words settled like stones in her stomach. "So what do I do?" "You have 2 choices. Walk away right now. I'll honor our contract, pay you out, make sure you're protected until this blows over. Or you stay, and you accept that everything just got significantly more dangerous." Lena looked around the ruined lobby. Weeks of work destroyed in one night. Her vision, her planning, her effort, all of it violated by someone who saw her as nothing more than leverage. The smart choice was obvious. Walk away. Let Adrian handle his territorial disputes. Go back to safety. But standing there, looking at the wreckage, all she felt was anger. "I want to stay." "Lena, I want to stay," she repeated, stronger this time. "I want to rebuild this. I want to finish what we started. And I want Drago to know that destroying things doesn't make him powerful. It just makes him a vandal with delusions." Something flickered in Adrian's eyes. Pride, maybe. Or concern. "You're sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." He studied her face for a long moment, then nodded. "All right. Then we do this right. Marcus will coordinate enhanced security. You don't go anywhere without protection. You don't deviate from approved routes. And you tell me immediately if anything feels wrong. That seems excessive. That's how you stay alive when someone's decided you're a useful target." He pulled out his phone. "I'm calling Vera. She'll want to assess the site personally." Vera arrived within the hour, her assessment swift and brutal. Amateur work? Drago's people probably. Meant to send a message without causing enough damage to trigger serious law enforcement response. "Mission accomplished," Lena said bitterly. "Maybe. But it also tells us something important. They're testing boundaries. seeing how far they can push before Adrian retaliates. Vera walked the perimeter, taking photos, which means they don't know him as well as they think, because if they did, they'd know that touching his projects is bad, but touching his people is suicidal. I'm not his people. I'm an employee. Vera gave her a look that suggested she was either naive or deliberately obtuse. Keep telling yourself that. The cleanup started that afternoon. Industrial crews removing debris, structural engineers assessing damage, security teams installing cameras and motion sensors. Within 48 hours, the site had transformed from crime scene to fortress. Lena coordinated it all from a makeshift office in the hotel's intact East Wing, her new security detail hovering nearby. 2 men, one named James, who barely spoke, another named Kozlov, who spoke too much, alternated shifts watching her work. This is insane, she muttered on the 3rd day, after Kozlov had physically blocked her from getting her own coffee. I can walk 10 feet to the coffee maker without protection. Not my call, Ms. Carter. Mr. Voss was very clear about protocols. She wanted to argue but knew it was pointless. Instead, she threw herself into work. New timelines, revised budgets, vendor negotiations that required explaining why, yes, the project was still happening, despite what they might have heard. By the end of the week, they were back on track. Slower than before, more expensive, but moving forward. You're handling this well, Marcus said during one of his daily check-ins. He'd started appearing at the site every morning, ostensibly to review security, but really, Lena suspected, to make sure she hadn't broken under the pressure. What choice do I have? Fall apart? Most people would. The first real threat, they fold. But you... He shook his head. You got angry instead of scared. That's either very brave or very foolish. Why not both? He laughed. Fair point. For what it's worth, I think you're good for Adrian. Good for him how? He's been alone a long time. Keeps people at distance. It's safer that way. Easier to make hard decisions when you don't care too much about anyone. Marcus met her eyes. But you're changing that. He cares. Which makes him vulnerable but also more human. I wasn't sure he remembered how to be human. The observation stayed with her. That night, back in the city after another long day at the site, she found herself at Adrian's office without really deciding to go there. He looked up when she entered and something in his expression eased. You should be home. Resting. I tried. Couldn't settle. She dropped into the chair across from his desk, exhausted. Marcus said something today. About you being alone. About me changing that. Marcus talks too much. Is it true? Adrian set down his pen. What do you want me to say, Lena? That I've spent 15 years building walls because caring about people is a weakness someone like me can't afford? That every person I've let get close has either betrayed me or been hurt because of their association with me? He ran a hand through his hair. Yes, I've been alone, by choice and by necessity. And yes, you're changing that, which should terrify me, but instead feels like the only honest thing I've done in years. The rawness in his voice made her chest tight. I'm scared too. Of this, of us, of what happens when the next threat comes. The next threat is already here. Drago won't stop with one vandalized site. So what do? We prepare. We protect what matters. And we make it clear that coming after my people has consequences. He stood, moving around the desk to lean against it in front of her. I have a meeting with Drago tomorrow night. Neutral territory. I'm bringing Vera and Marcus. What kind of meeting? The kind where I explain exactly what happens if he touches you or my projects again. His expression hardened. I wanted to tell you before you hear it from someone else. There's a possibility this gets ugly. Ugly how? The kind of ugly I've been trying to keep you away from. The kind that reminds you exactly who and what I am. Lena stood, closing the distance between them. I know who you are. I've known from the beginning, and I'm still here. You shouldn't be. This isn't the life you're supposed to have. Maybe not. But it's the life I'm choosing. She reached up, touching his face. So whatever happens tomorrow, we deal with it together. He pulled her close, and they stood like that for a long moment, drawing strength from each other. Outside, the city hummed with life. Inside, in the quiet of his office, they existed in a bubble where the complications and dangers could wait just a little longer. The next evening, Lena stayed late at the office, despite knowing Adrian's meeting with Drago was happening. She told herself she was catching up on work, but really she was too anxious to go home and wait. Amy had left at 6. The floor was mostly empty. Just Lena, her security detail stationed outside, and the quiet hum of the building after hours. At 8:30, her phone rang. Marcus.
It went bad.
Her blood turned cold. How bad? Drago brought 15 people. Adrian brought 3. They were outnumbered, outmaneuvered, and it turned into a standoff. Marcus's voice was tight. We're extracting now, but we need to move you too. They know where the office is, and if Drago's escalating, you're the most obvious target.
Where's Adrian?
Secure. Different location. I'm sending Kozlov to move you to the safe house.
I don't even know what that means.
It means you grab your essentials and you go with him. Now, Lena, this isn't optional.
The line went dead.
Kozlov appeared in her doorway seconds later. We need to leave. James is securing the vehicle. What's happening? Is Adrian okay? Mr. Voss is handling the situation. My job is keeping you safe. Please, Miss Carter, we need to move. She grabbed her purse, her laptop, the project files she couldn't afford to lose. Kozlov led her to the service elevator, avoiding the main lobby. They descended to the parking garage where James waited by a dark SUV with tinted windows. The drive took 30 minutes through streets she didn't recognize. They pulled up at a building in a neighborhood she'd never visited. Industrial area, mostly warehouses, nothing residential. This is the safe house? One of several Mr. Voss maintains for situations like this. Kozlov opened her door. It's secure, comfortable. You'll be here until the situation resolves. The building's exterior was bland, forgettable. Inside was different, finished space that looked like an expensive apartment, everything new and barely used.
How often do you use places like this?
More often than we'd like, James said. He did a quick sweep of the rooms while Kozlov checked security monitors. All clear, I'll be outside. Kozlov will stay with you inside.
For how long? Until we get the all clear from Mr. Voss or Marcus?
She wanted to argue, but knew it was pointless. This was Adrian's world, and right now she had to trust his people knew what they were doing. The hours passed slowly. Lena tried to work but couldn't concentrate. She paced. She called Adrian 3 times and got voicemail each time. She considered calling Marcus but didn't want to distract him if things were still dangerous. At midnight, the door opened. Adrian walked in, and relief crashed over her so hard she felt dizzy. He looked exhausted, tie gone, shirt rumpled, but whole, unharmed. She crossed the room and wrapped her arms around him, feeling the tension in his body gradually ease. I'm all right, he murmured. I'm sorry. I should have called. What happened? He guided her to the couch, and they sat. Kozlov discreetly disappeared into another room. Drago came prepared to make demands. Wanted a percentage of the Newport project, access to my development plans. Basically wanted to insert himself as a partner. Adrian's jaw tightened. When I refused, he made it clear he has the numbers to cause serious problems. More people, more resources than I anticipated. He's been building while I was focused on legitimate operations. So what did you do? I walked out. Told him he had 24 hours to reconsider his approach before I responded in kind.
Responded how?
He looked at her, and she saw the weight of decisions he'd already made. That's the part you don't need to know. The part I've been trying to keep separate from you. We're past separate. If this affects me, I deserve to know. Adrian was quiet for a moment, then he started talking. He told her about the network of contacts he'd built over 15 years. Law enforcement who looked the other way for the right price. Politicians whose campaigns he'd funded. Business rivals who owed him favors. The infrastructure of power he'd constructed that existed beneath the surface of his legitimate operations. He told her about the options he had for dealing with Drago. Legal maneuvers that would tie him up in court for years. Economic pressure through mutual business partners. And darker options that he didn't detail but that hung implicit in the conversation. I've built something here, Adrian said. Not just businesses, a system. And the way that system works is through reputation and relationships and the understanding that certain rules exist. Drago is trying to upset that balance by targeting me, by targeting what I care about. You, the projects, the work we've been doing. He thinks if he creates enough chaos, I'll cave.
Will you?
No, but I might do things I'm not proud of to end this. Lena took his hand. Then do them. Whatever it takes to keep us safe, keep your people safe, do it. I'm not going to judge you for protecting what's yours. You don't know what you're asking me to accept. I know exactly what I'm asking. I'm asking you to be who you are, not the version you show at charity galas or business meetings. The person who built this empire and keeps it running. She met his eyes. I chose this world. That means I choose all of it. Something in his expression broke. He pulled her close, holding her like she might disappear. I don't deserve you. Probably not. But you're stuck with me anyway. They stayed at the safe house that night. Adrian made calls from a secured phone, speaking in the shorthand she was learning to interpret. By morning, something had shifted. His posture had changed from defensive to determined. "What's happening?" Lena asked over coffee that Kozlov had somehow procured from somewhere. "I'm giving Drago his 24 hours, but I'm also making arrangements." "What kind of arrangements?" "The kind that mean either he backs down or this becomes very public very quickly." He set down his phone. Drago's business model relies on staying under the radar. If certain information about his operations became known to the right authorities, he'd be fighting legal battles for years. "You're going to expose him. I'm going to give him the choice to walk away or face exposure. What he does with that choice is up to him." It was strategic, brutal, effective. It was exactly what Lena would have expected from someone who'd survived and thrived in this world. "When?" "Tonight. I've called another meeting, same location, but this time I'm bringing more people, and I'm bringing you." Her head snapped up. "What? Why?" "Because Drago thinks you're a weakness. I want him to see that you're part of my team, that threatening you means threatening all of us." He caught her expression. "I won't put you in danger. You'll be surrounded by security, but your presence sends a message. That you don't back down. That we don't back down. This is your project he destroyed. Your work he threatened. You have every right to be there when I tell him it ends tonight." The meeting was set for 8 p.m. Lena spent the afternoon preparing like she was going into battle. She dressed carefully, business clothes, nothing flashy, everything conveying competence and control. She reviewed talking points with Vera, who seemed grimly pleased that Adrian was bringing her. "He needs this," Vera said. "Needs to show Drago he's not isolated, not weak. Having you there, standing with him, it matters." "I'm terrified." "Good. Fear keeps you sharp. Just remember, we'll be there. Marcus, myself, 6 others. Nothing happens to you, I promise." The location was the same restaurant as before, but this time the energy was completely different. Adrian's people arrived first, securing the space, checking for weapons or surveillance. When Drago showed up with his entourage, the two groups eyed each other like opposing armies. Lena walked in beside Adrian, feeling every eye turned toward her. Drago's expression when he saw her was carefully neutral, but she caught the flicker of surprise. "Mr. Drago," Adrian said, "I believe you've met Lena Carter, director of the Newport project you vandalized." "Ms. Carter, a pleasure." Drago's smile didn't reach his eyes. "I admire your dedication. Not many people would continue working on a project after such an unfortunate incident." "It wasn't an incident," Lena said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "It was deliberate destruction, and it failed to achieve whatever you hoped it would achieve." "Direct. I like that." Drago gestured to the conference table. "Shall we?" They sat. Adrian at one end, Drago at the other, their respective teams flanking them. Lena sat to Adrian's right, Vera to his left. Marcus stood behind them, a silent presence. "I'll be direct as well," Adrian said. "You have 2 options. Option 1, you pull back from my territory, cease all interference with my projects, and we coexist peacefully in separate spheres of influence. And option 2, every illegal operation you run gets documented and delivered to federal investigators by noon tomorrow. Your pharmaceutical distribution without licenses, your construction contracts that violate labor laws, your real estate deals that involve money laundering, all of it." Drago's expression didn't change, but his knuckles whitened on the table. "You're bluffing." "I don't bluff." Adrian slid a folder across the table. "That's a preview. Names, dates, amounts, sources. Everything the government would need to dismantle your organization piece by piece." Silence settled over the room. Drago opened the folder, scanned the contents, and his face went carefully blank. "This is war. This is business. You chose to escalate by targeting my projects and my people. I'm giving you a chance to de-escalate. Walk away, stay in your lane, and that folder stays private. Continue pushing, and it gets delivered. You're asking me to back down in front of my people. I'm asking you to be smart, to recognize when you've miscalculated." Adrian leaned forward slightly. "You wanted to test me, to see if running legitimate operations had made me soft. You have your answer. I'm willing to coexist, but I won't be pushed." Drago looked at Lena. "This is about her. This is about all of my people. She's just the one you made the mistake of threatening. What if I refuse? What if I call your bluff? Then you'll spend the next 5 years fighting federal charges while I expand into every territory you currently hold. Your choice." The tension in the room was thick enough to choke on. Lena kept her expression neutral, but her hands were clenched under the table. This was the moment. Either Drago backed down or everything escalated into open conflict. Finally, Drago closed the folder. You've made your point. I'll pull back from the waterfront development. The Newport project proceeds without interference. He stood, and his people stood with him. But make no mistake, Adrian, this isn't over. Someday you'll have a weakness I can exploit, and when that day comes, I'll remember this conversation. I look forward to it. Drago and his entourage left. The moment they were gone, the tension in the room broke like a snapped wire. That went better than expected, Marcus said. He agreed too easily, Vera countered. He's planning something. Probably. But for now, we bought time. Adrian turned to Lena. You okay? I think so. My hands are shaking. You did well. Better than well. He stood, addressing the room. Double security on all our sites for the next month. I want surveillance on Drago's movements, and I want to know immediately if he makes any unusual contacts or transactions. The team dispersed to implement orders. Soon it was just Adrian and Lena in the conference room, the adrenaline slowly fading. Is it really over? She asked. For now. Drago will honor the agreement as long as it's in his interest. But Vera's right. He'll be looking for another angle. So we just wait for the next threat? We prepare for it, and we don't let it stop us from moving forward. He helped her to her feet. Come on, let's get you home. You've had enough excitement for one night. The drive back to her apartment felt surreal. Lena kept replaying the meeting, analyzing every word, every gesture. She'd just sat across from a man who'd destroyed weeks of her work, threatened her safety, and looked him in the eye without backing down. Who was she becoming? Marcus dropped them at her building. Adrian walked her up, his security detail staying discreetly back. You don't have to come up, she said. I want to, if that's okay. Her apartment felt too normal after everything. Hemingway meowed for attention. Mail sat unopened on the counter. The mundane markers of a life that felt increasingly distant from who she was now. I keep thinking about what Drago said, Lena murmured, sitting on her couch. About you having a weakness he can exploit. He meant you. I know. Doesn't that worry you? Adrian sat beside her. Every day. You're the biggest vulnerability I've had in 15 years. But you're also the thing that makes any of this feel worthwhile. That's a lot of pressure. I know. I'm sorry. Don't be. She took his hand. I meant what I said earlier. I chose this. All of it. The danger, the complications, the fact that people like Drago will see me as leverage. I chose it because being with you, building this with you, it matters more than being safe. You're either the bravest person I've ever met or the most reckless. Why not both? He laughed, pulling her close. They sat like that for a while, just existing together in the quiet. Eventually, Adrian's phone buzzed. He checked it, frowned. What's wrong? Vera, Drago just made a large wire transfer to an offshore account. She's trying to trace where it went. That's bad. It could mean he's moving assets, preparing for something. The piece they'd found minutes ago evaporated. Adrian made calls, his voice sharp and focused. Lena listened to half conversations about surveillance and financial tracking and contingency plans. This was her life now. Moments of calm interrupted by constant vigilance. No real safety, just the illusion of it held together by preparation and force. She should have been terrified. Instead, watching Adrian coordinate his response, seeing him pivot from the gentle man who'd held her on the couch to the ruthless strategist protecting his empire, she felt something else entirely. Pride. Trust. And beneath it all, a love she was still too scared to name but could no longer deny. I need to go, Adrian said, ending his latest call. Vera wants a full briefing on Drago's financials. Could take all night. Be careful. Always. He kissed her forehead. I'll have Marcus station someone outside, just as a precaution. Adrian? He paused from... We're going to be okay. Whatever Drago's planning, whatever comes next, we're going to handle it. How are you so sure? Because we've handled everything else so far. Why would this be different? He smiled, small but genuine. Get some rest. Tomorrow we rebuild. After he left, Lena sat in her quiet apartment processing everything. The meeting, the threats, the casual discussion of federal investigations and offshore accounts like it was normal business. Her phone buzzed. A text from Ashley. Haven't heard from you in weeks. Everything okay? Lena stared at the message, thinking about how to answer. How could she explain that everything was fine and nothing was fine? That she'd found exactly what she was looking for, and it came wrapped in danger she was still learning to navigate. Everything's good, just busy. Miss you. The response came quickly. Dinner next week? You can tell me about this mysterious job. I'll try. Things are complicated right now. They've been complicated for months. I'm starting to worry. Lena set down her phone. Ashley wasn't wrong. She'd been keeping everyone at arm's length, feeding them half-truths and vague reassurances. At some point, that wasn't sustainable. But tonight wasn't the night to figure that out. Tonight she'd survived her first real confrontation with Adrian's enemies, had stood beside him as an equal, not a victim, had chosen, once again, to stay when leaving would have been easier. Outside, the city continued its endless rhythm. Inside, Lena Carter sat in the dark and wondered how far she was willing to go for a life that challenged her, terrified her, and made her feel more alive than anything ever had. The answer, she was discovering, was further than she'd ever imagined, and that realization should have scared her more than it did. The cleanup took 3 days. Lena coordinated with contractors, insurance adjusters, and security teams while Adrian made phone calls that she pretended not to hear. Calls where his voice dropped to a register that made the air feel colder, where he spoke in half sentences that clearly meant something to the people on the other end. She didn't ask questions, didn't want to know. But on the 4th day, Vera showed up at the Newport site with a file folder and an expression that suggested someone was about to have a very bad day. Victor Drago, she said, dropping the folder on the makeshift desk Lena had set up in the hotel's intact wing. Small-time operator trying to move up. He's been sniffing around Adrian's territory for months. Lena opened the folder. Photos of a man in his 40s, sharp suit, sharper eyes. Documentation of businesses he owned, properties he controlled, people he employed. Why target this project? Because it's visible. Because hurting Adrian's reputation hurts his legitimacy strategy. Vera's tone was clinical. And because you're involved. Lena's head snapped up. What does that mean? Drago's people have been watching. They know Adrian gave you this project, know you matter to him. Vera's expression didn't change. That makes you leverage. The room felt too small suddenly. I'm a target. You were always a target. Now you're just a more obvious one. Marcus appeared in the doorway. We need to move her. Move me where? Yes. Lena stood, fear spiking through her chest. I'm not going into hiding because some asshole vandalized a construction site. It wasn't just vandalism, Adrian said, walking in behind Marcus. His face was tight. We found surveillance equipment in the debris. Cameras. Audio recording devices. Someone's been watching this site for weeks. The implications hit her like cold water. They were watching me. Yes. For how long? We're still determining that. He crossed to where she stood, and his voice gentled slightly. I'm not asking you to hide, but I'm asking you to let us increase security. Marcus will assign a protective detail. You'll have someone with you at all times. That's insane. I can't work with bodyguards following me around. You don't have a choice. The steel was back in his voice. Drago made this personal when he targeted my project. When he targeted you, I won't give him another opportunity. She wanted to argue, wanted to insist she could handle herself, but the training Marcus had put her through suddenly felt very relevant and very insufficient. Fine, but they stay out of my way. They'll be invisible. You won't even know they're there. That turned out to be a lie. The 2 men assigned to her, both former military, both built like refrigerators, were about as invisible as a parade. They followed her to meetings, stood outside restaurants while she had lunch, parked outside her apartment building at night. After 2 days, she was ready to scream. I can't live like this, she told Adrian when she stormed into his office Friday evening. I feel like I'm in prison. You're safe. That's what matters. I'm suffocating. There's a difference. He set down whatever he'd been reading. What do you want me to do, Lena? Tell them to back off and hope Drago doesn't make a move? I want to go back to normal. I want to do my job without armed escorts and constant surveillance and… She stopped, hearing how naive she sounded. This is the part you warned me about. The messy part. Yes. She sank into the chair across from his desk. How do you live like this? Constantly looking over your shoulder? You get used to it. The vigilance becomes automatic. That sounds exhausting. It is. He studied her with an expression she couldn't read. If you want out, now's the time. I'll void the contract, get you somewhere safe until this blows over. The offer hung between them, an escape route, a chance to walk away from all of this before it got worse. She should take it, should run while she still could. No. Lena, I said no. I'm not quitting because some territorial asshole is trying to make a point. She met his eyes. You asked me to commit. I committed. That doesn't change just because things got complicated. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe. Or respect. All right, but the security detail stays. Fine. Can I at least get guards who don't look like they're auditioning for an action movie? He almost smiled. I'll see what I can do. The weekend passed in tense normalcy. Lena worked from her apartment, reviewed renovation plans, made calls to vendors while her security detail lurked in the hallway. She ordered takeout, and the delivery guy had to be cleared by 2 separate people before he could hand over her pad thai. It would have been funny if it weren't terrifying. Monday morning, she was back at the office reviewing the Newport timeline when Amy knocked urgently. Conference room, now. Adrian wants everyone. The room was packed when Lena arrived. Vera, Marcus, David the lawyer, Isabel, Paulo from construction, and a dozen others she recognized from the Monday dinners. Adrian stood at the head of the table, and the expression on his face made her stomach clench. Drago made contact, he said without preamble. He wants a meeting. That's bold, Vera said. Vandalize your property, then ask for a sit-down? He's testing boundaries, seeing how far he can push before I push back. Marcus leaned forward. Are you taking the meeting? We are. Tomorrow night. Neutral location. Adrian's gaze swept the room. I'm bringing Lena. The room erupted. That's a mistake, Vera said flatly. You're bringing her directly into his line of sight. He already knows about her. Hiding her now makes her look like a weakness. She is a weakness, one of the other men said, and Lena's temper flared. I'm sitting right here. Adrian held up a hand for silence. Lena comes because I want Drago to understand she's under my protection, that touching my people has consequences. He looked at her. Unless you're not comfortable with that. Every eye in the room turned toward her. This was a test of her nerve, of her commitment, of whether she truly belonged in this world. I'll be there, she said. Adrian nodded. Then it's settled. Vera, I want full security sweep of the location. Marcus, coordinate with the detail. Everyone else, business as usual. I don't want Drago thinking he's disrupting operations. The meeting dispersed. Lena started to leave, but Adrian caught her arm. Are you sure about this? Are you asking if I'm scared? Yes, I'm terrified, but I'm also not backing down. You don't have to prove anything. Maybe I do, to myself, if not to anyone else. She pulled free gently. What should I expect tomorrow? Posturing. Threats disguised as negotiation. Drago trying to figure out what I care about so he knows where to apply pressure. And you're bringing me so he thinks you don't care. I'm bringing you so he knows that hurting you means declaring war. There's a difference. His expression was serious. I won't let anything happen to you, Lena. I promise. The conviction in his voice made her chest tight. I know. Tuesday afternoon, Marcus gave her a detailed briefing. The meeting would take place at a restaurant Drago owned, a power move on his part. Adrian's security would sweep it first. She'd be surrounded by protection. The goal was to present a united front, show no weakness, give Drago nothing to exploit. What if he tries something? She asked. He won't. Not at his own location with witnesses. That would be declaring open war, and he's not ready for that. Marcus handed her a small device that looked like a keychain. But just in case, press this if you feel threatened. Backup will be there in seconds. She pocketed it with shaking hands. At 7 p.m., she met Adrian in his office. He dressed for the occasion, suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent, everything sharp and deliberate. He looked like what he was, someone you didn't cross without consequences. Ready? He asked. No. But let's go anyway. The restaurant was upscale, dark wood and dim lighting, the kind of place where you needed a reservation weeks in advance. They were led to a private room in the back where Victor Drago waited with two of his own people. He stood when they entered, smile not quite reaching his eyes. Adrian, thank you for coming. Let's skip the pleasantries, Victor. You vandalized my property. Explain why I shouldn't retaliate. Drago's smile widened. Straight to business. I always appreciated that about you. His gaze slid to Lena. And you brought a guest. How thoughtful. Lena Carter. She manages the Newport project you destroyed. Ah, the event planner. The way he said it made it sound like an insult. I heard about the gala. Very impressive. Tell me, Miss Carter, how does someone go from planning parties to working for a man like Adrian? I'm versatile, she said, keeping her voice steady. How does someone go from whatever you do to petty vandalism? The temperature in the room dropped. Drago's men shifted. Adrian went very still beside her, but Drago laughed. She has spirit. I like that. He gestured to the chairs. Please, sit. We have things to discuss. They sat. One of Drago's men poured wine that no one touched. The Newport property, Drago began. Beautiful location, excellent potential. I'd been interested in acquiring it myself before you swooped in. You didn't have the capital, Adrian said, or the vision. Perhaps, but I have other resources, other ways of making my interests known. Like hiring thugs to destroy months of work? Like sending a message that the city has room for more than one person with ambition. Adrian leaned back in his chair, completely relaxed. You want to discuss territory? Fine. What are you proposing? What followed was 20 minutes of carefully worded negotiation that sounded almost civilized but carried the weight of violence underneath every word. Drago wanted access to the waterfront development projects, wanted a piece of the hospitality sector, wanted recognition as an equal player. Adrian countered each demand with precision, giving nothing, conceding less. Lena watched it unfold like a chess match, understanding that every word mattered, every pause carried meaning. The problem, Victor, is that you haven't earned a seat at this table, Adrian said finally. You destroyed property to get my attention. That's not negotiation, that's temper tantrum. Drago's smile turned sharp. And yet here we are. Here we are because I'm giving you one chance to walk away before this escalates. Adrian's tone didn't change, but the threat was clear. Touch my operations again and I won't be so accommodating. Is that a threat? It's a promise. Silence stretched. Then Drago's attention shifted back to Lena. What about you, Ms. Carter? Do you agree with Adrian's approach, or do you think perhaps he's being unreasonable? The question was a trap, designed to drive a wedge, to make Adrian look weak for bringing her, to expose any doubt or disagreement. Lena met Drago's eyes and thought about everything she'd learned in the past months. About Marcus's training, about the gala where she'd proved herself, about choosing this world knowing exactly what it meant. I think Adrian makes promises he keeps, she said quietly. I've seen it, and I wouldn't want to be on the wrong side of one. Drago studied her for a long moment, then he stood. This conversation is over, for now. He looked at Adrian. But the city's changing. New players are coming. You can either adapt or get left behind. I don't adapt to threats, Victor. I eliminate them. They left without another word. The ride back to the city was silent, tension thick in the car. When they finally pulled up at the Voss building, Adrian turned to her. That was either very brave or very stupid. Probably both. She was shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. Did I make it worse? No. You made your position clear. Drago knows now that you're not someone he can manipulate. But he also knows I matter to you, that I'm leverage. He already knew that. Now he knows using that leverage will cost him everything. Adrian's expression was grave. This isn't over, Lena. He'll come at us again, probably harder. Then we'll be ready. You say that like you're planning to stay in the line of fire. I am. This is my project, my work. I'm not hiding while someone tries to destroy it. He looked at her like he was seeing something new. You've changed from that terrified woman who showed up in my office 2 months ago. You changed me. This world changed me. She met his eyes. I'm not sure if I should thank you or curse you for it. Both seems appropriate. She laughed, surprising herself. Yeah, both. The next week passed in heightened tension. Security was doubled. The Newport site got 24-hour armed guards. Lena's protective detail became 3 people instead of 2. But Drago didn't make another move. The silence felt ominous, like waiting for a storm that you could feel building but couldn't see yet. Work continued. The lobby renovation was back on track. Lena hired a new marketing team. The hotel's grand opening was scheduled for 3 months out. Everything was proceeding according to plan. Then, on a Friday afternoon, Vera burst into Lena's office without knocking. Pack a bag. We're moving you. Now. Lena's blood went cold. What happened? Drago's people were spotted near your apartment. We think they're planning something. Planning what? We're not waiting to find out. Marcus is already en route with the team. You're staying at Adrian's place tonight. I can't just... Yes, you can. This isn't negotiable. Vera was already on her phone coordinating logistics. Amy's gathering your essentials from the office. I'll have clothes sent to Adrian's. Move. The drive to Adrian's penthouse, a location she'd somehow never visited despite working for him for 2 months, felt surreal. Marcus drove while her security detail followed in a second vehicle. No one spoke. The penthouse occupied the entire top floor of a building in Back Bay. Floor-to-ceiling windows, minimalist furniture, art that probably cost more than most houses. It looked like a magazine spread. Impersonal, cold. Nothing like the man who lived there. Adrian was waiting when they arrived, still in his work clothes, tie loosened. Vera briefed me, he said. You'll stay here until we neutralize the threat. How long will that take? As long as necessary. Lena wanted to argue, but exhaustion won out. She nodded. Marcus and the security team did a full sweep of the penthouse, checked every window, every entrance. When they finally left, it was just her and Adrian in the vast, too-quiet space. Guest room is down that hall, he said. Everything you should need is there. If you want anything else, just ask. Thank you. Awkward silence settled. They'd spent countless hours together in offices and conference rooms, but this felt different, personal, intimate in a way that made her aware of how little distance stood between them. I should let you rest, Adrian said finally. It's been a long day. Adrian? He paused. Why are you doing this? Really doing this? You could have paid Drago off, given him what he wanted, avoided all of this. Because giving in to people like Victor Drago doesn't end threats, it multiplies them. He turned to face her fully. And because I protect what's mine. Your business interests. You. The word hung in the air between them. I protect you, Lena. Not because you're useful, or because losing you would hurt the Newport project. Because the thought of someone hurting you makes me want to burn down everything they've ever built. Her heart was pounding now. That sounds personal. It is personal. He moved closer, and she could see the exhaustion in his face, the worry he'd been hiding behind control. It became personal the night of the gala when you stood on that terrace and told me you didn't want to walk away. It became personal every time you pushed back in meetings, every time you solved a problem I thought was unsolvable, every time you chose to stay when leaving would have been easier. Adrian, you don't have to say anything. I know this complicates everything. I know it's probably the worst possible timing. He ran a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of uncertainty. But you should know, before this goes any further, before Drago forces a confrontation that might end badly for all of us, you should know that you matter. Lena's mind was racing. This was her boss, the man who'd threatened her life 2 months ago, the man whose world was violence and crime and danger, the man who'd given her a chance when no one else would have, who'd trusted her with important work, who'd protected her without hesitation, the man she'd been half in love with for weeks without admitting it. I know, she whispered. I've known for a while. And? She closed the distance between them, made the choice that was probably reckless and definitely complicated, but felt more right than anything she'd done in years. And I'm terrified. Of you, of this world, of what happens next. She looked up at him. But I'm also not walking away. He kissed her then, and it felt like falling and flying simultaneously. Like the moment in a disaster, when you realize you're not going to die, you're going to live, and living is so much scarier and more exhilarating than you remembered. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. This is going to be complicated. Everything about us has been complicated from the start. He laughed, soft and genuine. Fair point. They moved to the couch, sat close enough to touch but not quite touching, both processing what had just shifted between them. What happens now, Zisum? Lena asked. Now we deal with Drago, permanently. His expression hardened. He made a mistake targeting you. He doesn't know it yet, but he just declared war on someone who doesn't lose wars. The next morning, Lena woke in the guest room to voices in the main living area. She dressed quickly and found Adrian, Vera, Marcus, and 3 other people she recognized from the organization gathered around a table covered in documents and photographs. Sorry, she said. I didn't mean to interrupt. You're not interrupting. Adrian gestured her over. This involves you. You should hear it. What followed was a detailed breakdown of Drago's operations, his weaknesses, his assets, his connections. They'd been gathering intelligence for weeks, building a comprehensive picture of his organization. The waterfront warehouse, Vera said, pointing to a photo. That's where he's storing his primary inventory. Pharmaceuticals. He's been undercutting the established distributors, trying to force market share. Security, Adrian asked. Moderate. We could hit it, but the blowback would be significant. He'd retaliate. Marcus leaned forward. What if we don't hit it? What if we expose it? Everyone looked at him. He's operating without proper licensing. The inventory isn't documented. One anonymous tip to the right federal agency. Marcus shrugged. Let the government do our work for us. Vera's expression shifted. That's actually smart. He'd be fighting regulatory battles for months. No time or resources to come after us. And when he figures out we're behind it, one of the other men asked. He'll know there are consequences for targeting Adrian's people, Vera said, which is the point. Adrian considered it, fingers drumming on the table. Then he nodded. Do it, but quietly. I want deniability if this goes wrong. The meeting continued for another hour, refining the plan, assigning roles, building contingencies. Lena listened, fascinated and horrified by the casual efficiency with which they planned to dismantle a rival's operation. This was Adrian's world, strategic, ruthless, effective, and she was choosing to be part of it. When the others finally left, she stayed. Questions? Adrian asked. Hundreds, but they all boil down to the same thing. How do you live with this? The constant conflict, the moral gray areas, the risk. He was quiet for a moment. I tell myself it's necessary, that people like Drago exist regardless of whether I engage with them, and at least this way I can protect the people who matter to me. He met her eyes. But honestly, some days I don't know if I'm making things better or just participating in an endless cycle of violence. The honesty surprised her. That sounds lonely. It is. Or it was. He reached for her hand. Less so now. The plan executed 3 days later. Anonymous tips went to federal regulatory agencies. Search warrants were issued. Drago's warehouse was raided on a Wednesday morning, and the news made the evening broadcasts. Pharmaceutical distributor under investigation for unlicensed operations. Millions in potential fines. Criminal charges pending. Drago would be fighting legal battles for months. He'd also know exactly who was responsible. Lena waited for retaliation, for violence, for everything to escalate. Instead, Drago's lawyer called requesting a meeting. They met at the same restaurant as before, but this time the dynamic was completely different. Drago looked tired, frustrated, like a man who'd realized he'd miscalculated badly. You made your point, he said without preamble. The warehouse raid, the federal investigation, I get it. You're not someone I can push. No, Adrian agreed. I'm not. So what now? We go to war? Destroy each other? That's one option, or we could be smart about this. Drago leaned back. I'm listening. What followed was a different kind of negotiation, not about territory or power, but about coexistence. Drago would focus on the northern suburbs, areas where Adrian had minimal presence. In exchange, Adrian wouldn't interfere with his operations as long as they stayed outside city limits. "This is you backing down," Drago said. "After everything." "This is me choosing strategic victory over pointless conflict," Adrian corrected. "You wanted recognition as a legitimate player. Fine. You have it. But the moment you cross into my territory again, the moment you threaten my people, we're done talking." Drago looked at Lena. "This is about her. This is about all of my people. She's just the one you were stupid enough to make an example of." Something shifted in Drago's expression. Calculation. Reassessment. "All right," he said finally. "We have a deal." They shook hands. Legal agreements would be drawn up later, terms formalized through lawyers and intermediaries. But the essential truce was there. When they left, Lena waited until they were in the car before speaking. "You let him off easy." "I ended a conflict before it cost lives or resources." "That's not easy. That's smart." Adrian glanced at her. "You disagree?" I think I expected more violence, more drama." Real power isn't about violence. It's about knowing when to fight and when to negotiate. Drago learned his lesson. He'll stay in his lane, and I don't have to waste time and money on a turf war. He smiled slightly. "You sound disappointed." "Not disappointed, just surprised. You could have destroyed him." "I could have. But then the next person would see that as weakness. That I can't coexist, can only eliminate. This way I look reasonable, controlled, someone who can be negotiated with under the right circumstances." She was beginning to understand how he'd built his empire. Not through constant violence, but through strategic application of force combined with careful reputation management. "You're scarier than I thought," she said. "Good. That means I'm doing it right." Life settled into a new normal over the following weeks. Lena moved back to her apartment, security detail reduced but still present. The Newport project surged forward. The grand opening was now 6 weeks away. Her relationship with Adrian remained complicated. They were professional in the office, but there were late nights in his penthouse, dinners that turned into conversations that lasted until dawn, moments of connection that felt both inevitable and impossible. "This is insane," she said one evening, lying on his couch with her head in his lap while he absently played with her hair. "My family thinks I work in real estate development. My friends think I disappeared into some demanding corporate job, and here I am, dating a criminal. Allegedly criminal. No convictions on record. Semantics. Important semantics." He looked down at her. "Do you regret it? Any of it?" She thought about the woman who'd sent that wrong number text 2 months ago. Terrified. Small. Playing it safe in a life that felt too small for who she was. Then she thought about who she'd become. Someone who could negotiate with contractors and coordinate security teams and stand across from men like Victor Drago without flinching. Someone who'd found her courage in the least likely place. "No," she said, "I don't regret it. Even the scary parts, especially the scary parts, maybe." "Why especially those?" "Because they taught me I'm stronger than I thought. That I can handle things I never imagined handling." She sat up, turning to face him. That text message, that stupid, wrong number text, it changed everything. And yeah, it was terrifying and dangerous and completely insane, but it also gave me this. You. This life. And I wouldn't trade that. He kissed her forehead. "You're braver than I am." "That's definitely not true." "It is. Bravery isn't about not being afraid. It's about being afraid and choosing to move forward anyway. You've been doing that since the night you walked into my office." The Newport Hotel's grand opening was everything Lena had imagined and more. The restored lobby gleamed with amber lighting exactly as she'd planned. Guests filled the space, celebrities, business leaders, politicians, everyone who mattered. The press coverage was extensive and glowing. She stood in the center of it all, watching her vision come to life, and felt pride so intense it was almost painful. Adrian found her near midnight, after the speeches and the champagne toasts and the endless networking. "You did this," he said. "We did this." "No, this was you, your vision, your work, your determination. He handed her a glass of champagne. To new beginnings. To wrong number texts that change everything. They clinked glasses and drank, surrounded by the proof that sometimes mistakes lead you exactly where you need to be. 6 months later, Lena was reviewing plans for their next project, a boutique hotel in Providence, when Amy knocked. "You have a visitor. She says she's your sister?" Lena's stomach dropped. "Rachel. Here. At the office." She found her sister in the lobby, looking around with obvious curiosity and growing suspicion. "Rachel, what are you doing here? What am I—" "Lena, you've been dodging my calls for weeks. Mom's worried. I'm worried. So I decided to show up and see this job you won't talk about." Rachel's eyes swept the expensive lobby, the security desk, the obvious markers of serious money. "What exactly do you do here?" "Business development, I told you." "For who?" Before Lena could answer, Adrian emerged from the elevators. He saw them, changed direction, approached with the kind of natural authority that made people step aside. "Ms. Carter." Professional, distant. Nothing in his expression suggested they'd had breakfast together that morning. "Is everything all right?" "This is my sister, Rachel. She was just leaving." Rachel's eyes narrowed, clearly catching the subtext. "Actually, I'd love to know more about where my sister works. Maybe we could all grab coffee?" Adrian's expression didn't flicker. "Unfortunately, I have meetings, but Amy can give you a tour of our facilities if you're interested. We're quite proud of what we've built here." He excused himself smoothly, leaving Lena alone with her sister's penetrating stare. "He's your boss?" "Yes, that's not all he is," Lena sighed. "Coffee, but not here. And Rachel? You can't repeat what I'm about to tell you." They ended up at the same coffee shop where Lena had made her decision months ago. She told Rachel an edited version of the truth, the wrong number text, Adrian's offer, the work she'd been doing, the danger that had come with it. She left out the criminal details, the meetings with Drago, the federal raids, the parts that would make Rachel insist she run. Even the edited version made Rachel pale. "Lena, this is crazy." "I know." "You could get hurt. You could get killed. I could also get hit by a bus tomorrow. Life doesn't come with guarantees. But you're choosing this, deliberately walking into danger. I'm choosing a life that challenges me, that makes me feel alive." Lena met her sister's eyes. "I was dying slowly in my old job, Rachel. Playing it safe, being invisible, going through motions. This, whatever this is, it's messy and complicated and sometimes terrifying, but it's real. It's mine, and I'm good at it." Rachel was quiet for a long time. Then she reached across the table and took Lena's hand. "You seem happy, genuinely happy. I haven't seen that in years." "I am happy." "And this Adrian person, he treats you well?" "Better than well. He sees me, really sees me. Not who I'm supposed to be or who's convenient for him, but who I actually am." "If he hurts you, I'll kill him myself." Lena laughed. "I appreciate that." They talked for another hour, Rachel asking questions, Lena answering what she could. It wasn't perfect. There were still secrets, still gaps in the story. But it was honest enough. When they finally parted, Rachel hugged her tightly. "Be careful, please." "I will. I promise." Back at the office, Adrian was waiting in her doorway. "How bad?" "She knows. Not everything, but enough." "Will she be a problem?" "No. She's my sister. She'll worry and disapprove and probably lecture me every time we talk, but she won't cause trouble." Lena moved into his arms, letting him hold her. "This is my life now, for better or worse, and I'm tired of hiding it from the people who matter. That's dangerous. Everything about us is dangerous. Doesn't make it less worth it." He kissed the top of her head. "No. It doesn't." The Providence project launched successfully 8 months later. Then came projects in Portland, and Hartford, and Newport, again for a second property. Lena's reputation grew. She was sought after, respected, known as someone who could turn failing properties into destinations. The work was still demanding, the hours brutal, the stakes high, but she thrived. 2 years after that wrong number text, Lena stood in Adrian's penthouse watching the city lights, thinking about paths not taken. She could have run that first night, could have gone to the police despite the warning, could have played it safe. Instead, she'd walked into the office of the most dangerous man in the city and somehow found the life she'd been looking for all along. Regrets? Adrian asked, joining her at the window. Not even one. Not even the part where you accidentally texted a crime boss at midnight? Especially not that part. Best mistake I ever made. He pulled her close, and they stood together in comfortable silence, watching their city spread beneath them. Sometimes the wrong path leads you exactly where you're supposed to be. Sometimes danger and safety are less important than meaning and purpose. Sometimes the person who scares you most is the one who sees you most clearly. Lena had learned all of that the hard way. She wouldn't change a single moment. Outside, the city glittered with possibility. Inside, in the space between one heartbeat and the next, Lena Carter understood what it meant to be truly, recklessly, completely alive. One text message had started this. A lifetime of choices would define what came next, and she was ready for all of it.